So just a couple housekeeping things first before we get into the curriculum itself. First, welcome. Thank you guys so much for joining. I put a ton of time into making this like the best short form hooks training workshop ever built from what I've seen. So I'm really excited to take you guys through everything. A few things. The first one is the objective. Just to remind everyone, the goal of this is to be the best full deep dive into short form hooks. And really like my goal by the end of the session is that you guys will have significantly upgraded your understanding and approach to hooks, and also walk away with a system that helps you write and build better hooks automatically. So that's the goal. Just keep that in mind as we go. We already mentioned this on the questions. Feel free to ask the questions in the Q&A and then elaborate on it in the chat. Like I said, most of them will be answered throughout the material. I have a section at the bottom where I've written the answers to a bunch of them as well. But for those that aren't, we'll be able to curate those. And if we have time at the end, we'll dive into it. And then the next piece is on the recording. I know I mentioned this already a couple times, but for those who've just joined, all of this will be recorded and you'll get this full doc as well as the hook database that I'll show you that I've built. You'll get all of that after the fact. Cool. So just one note for everyone. I really recommend everybody lock in for 90 minutes. Like if possible, close all your other tabs, minimize all the other windows if you can, and like really focus. If you invest the next 90 minutes of focus, I guarantee it'll 10x your videos if you take away from this. So do your best to not multitask. Cool. And then a few other things for you guys. So I'm not sure if everyone has watched my other videos on YouTube, but I have a bunch of other videos on hooks, nowhere near as in-depth as this. But if you want to continue learning after this, I've got 4 links to those videos for you. We'll link this and then people can watch them. Let me switch to this. If you haven't ever seen my YouTube channel, there's like a ton of free stuff on here, playbooks, workshops, everything on here. So these videos are linked here. So make sure to check that out. That's at Kallaway Marketing on YouTube. Cool, we'll go back to this. And then 2 other quick things. The first one is sandcastles.ai. If you haven't heard of sandcastles.ai, this is the tool I'm building to basically productize all the knowledge and systems in my head around content and create like an AI SaaS tool that allows you to make content faster. So throughout this session, everything I reference, the workflows, the tips, the systems, all of that is baked into Sandcastles already, which you can use, and it's good to go off the shelf. So the piece of Sandcastles that already exists is script writing. And so I wanted to show that really quickly. Sandcastles essentially is a 3-step process today to be able to write your scripts. All you have to do is type in the topic you want to write. We do the research for you. We come up with an outline for you, and then we write the script for you. I'll log back into it. That allows you to kind of get hooks written automatically using this system that I'm about to go through. So for everyone on this workshop, here's a 20% off discount code for life. Hooks Workshop with the 2 zeros. If you guys aren't already subscribed, everyone in SFA has Sandcastles already for free, but if you aren't already subscribed, this is a great tool. We're also going to be building a ton more into it around ideas and helping you do research on the hooks, which I'll go through. So just wanted to call that out. And then the last thing that I'll just briefly mention now, Short Form Academy is the full program that I've put together for getting better with short form. Everyone on the line from Short Form Academy gets access to all these workshops for free. But really what Short Form Academy is it's an end-to-end solve. So if you look at this graphic below, when it comes to videos, there's a lot that you have to do in addition to hooks, right? So there's channel positioning, content strategy, idea mining, research, the scripting, the recording, editing, posting, how to grow, how to monetize. There's a lot that comes in the full umbrella of getting good with content. Today we're covering the hooks, but SFA is a program fully built for all of this. So the people in SFA are in here. They know like this type of rigor with all of the facets is what is how I cover it. So just wanted to call this out. SFA is really 3 things. It's curriculum, like what you're about to go through today for hooks. It's group coaching. So we have 2 weekly calls with the full group. And then it's one-on-one consulting with me. You get 2 live one-on-ones with me where I can go over the strategy. So if you're not currently in SFA and you think you may want to join to upgrade your ability to make short form videos, we have a special offer here. It's only going to be live during this call. At the end of this call, 1 hour after this call, we're shutting down the link. We're not accepting anyone else. So we're opening enrollment just for people on this call. You can check that out at shortform.academy/invite. You'll have that link and we'll go through it. But just wanted to call that out as well. This is like one piece of the full portfolio. Cool. So let's get into the curriculum. This is the agenda for the day. We're going to cover all of these things. If we have time at the end, I'll answer any questions we have put in the Q&A in the meeting invite. So the first thing is we're going to quickly just touch on a reminder of why hooks are so important. Turns out hooks are even more important than people think. We're just going to go over that quickly. The first big piece is around the building blocks of hooks. So there's really 4 components that make up hooks, not just one, the spoken. Most people think when they think hook, they think of like what's being said. That's only one of 4 components. So we're going to talk about the 4 components and how to maximize alignment of those components. Then we're going to walk through base psychology of a viewer when they're consuming a video. How do we actually engineer addictive hooks to take advantage of that psychology? We're going to break that down. This is like the full building blocks of actually the raw DNA of what to do in hooks to get them to convert. Then we're going to break down these 2 things, which are hook structures. So like, what are the different Lego bricks that you could pull from for different hooks? We're going to break all that down. And then what is the research process that you can run to look at other people that are winning in your niche and try to dissect what they're doing well. So I'm going to break those 2 things down. Then I'm going to walk through the full framework. So like, this is the 10-minute checklist every time you make a video that you can run through. Foolproof, works for every niche. And then this will allow you to make sure that you have a winning hook every single time. So I'm going to walk through that framework. Lastly, I've pulled 12 different sets of examples from creators and brands across many niches. 1 good hook, 1 bad hook from each creator. We're going to go through each of those examples and we're going to break down why the good ones were good and why the bad ones were bad to give you more reps into seeing this stuff in practice. So it's kind of like theory, approach, and then examples is how we're going to do it. And again, like I'm gonna try to rip through all this so that we can get to questions at the end. Anything we don't get to, it'll be in the doc for everyone, and I've like fully written it out. Cool. Before I keep going, Melvin, are there any like pressing questions in the Q&A or anything we need to cover? Or are we good to go?
No, but if you can give me, I'm not able to. I don't know if you have the hosting ability. Like, do I have that? The co-host.
I think you do, but let me give it to you real quick.
Double check. Yeah.
Cool. While I'm doing this, everyone just take a second, go to the Q&A and just drop in the one thing that you're most excited for based on the walkthrough of the agenda that I just went through.
The chat, the Q&A is for questions specifically. Drop it in the chat.
Doing 10 things at once. Okay, yeah, you should be good as the co-host. Cool. All right, let's dive into the first part. So this is the purpose, like why hooks are more important than you think. All right, so just to level set with everyone, what is a hook, right? The hook is the first 2 to 6 seconds of a short form video. We all know this. During the hook, the viewer is rapidly absorbing context. The visuals, the text on screen, and the audio that they're hearing, both the spoken words and the music and sound effects. They're rapidly absorbing that context. And really what the viewer is doing is they're deciding whether or not they should opt in to continue watching the video. So I'm going to say this many times throughout this workshop. The only goal of the hook is to get somebody to opt in to keep going. That's all you have to do. If you had 100% hit rate, 100 people start watching the video and 100 opt in past the hook, that's the best you can possibly do. That's all we're trying to do is get them to opt in. Okay, now why are hooks so critical? I have 4 reasons here, but really there's 3 reasons. The first one is just basic funnel math, right? So the absolute instant that someone churns off your video, nothing else that comes after that hook comes after that point matters. So if you have a 55-second video and the person churns at 30 seconds, then that last 25 seconds of that video might as well have been a black screen, right? They're never going to see it. And so any work, any time spent after they churn is actually worthless once they churn, right? It might as well be a black screen. If you make a 55-second video and they churn after 4 seconds, the last 51 seconds means nothing, right? And so because of this, the hook, which is the first 2 to 6 seconds, matters exponentially more than the rest of the video. It matters so much because if they churn there, the rest doesn't matter. So that's number 1. Everyone understands that. Number two is about the bridge to trust, right? Everybody on this line is a business owner. They're trying to accrue trust to them, which they can eventually build that trust and then monetize through products and services. So as a business owner, your primary goal is to build one-to-one trust at scale. If you make a piece of content and 100,000 people trust you based on that one piece of content, it was considered solid, right? You're trying to build that trust at scale. So hooks are essentially the bridge that gets a viewer to watch that piece of content and build the trust. If the viewer never crosses that bridge, zero trust is built, right? So that's number two. You're trying to build trust at scale, and you really cannot build trust unless they watch the video with context and watch the content you make. They're never going to watch it if they bounce on the hook. The third piece, which I think is the most underrated piece, to be honest, is that in short form, hooks are both the headline and the intro wrapped into one. So all other forms of content, YouTube videos, blog posts, emails, they all have headlines, titles, subject lines. And so the viewer is actually opting in to want to consume the piece based on that teaser, right? A hook is different in that it is fed on the feed to someone. They don't get a choice whether they're opting in or not, which means it's good because more people will start consuming it than maybe some of these other formats. But it means the hook has that much more risk because someone has to be able to contextualize what's coming and then decide to keep going. So that's kind of these two pieces, like choice versus reflex. So for these three reasons, the pure math, the fact that all you need is trust and hooks are the barrier, and that there really is no way to opt in other than to watch the hook. The hook is, I wrote it down here, no matter how important you think hooks are, they're more important than that, right? So you should be spending 30 to 40% of your total video time on the hook until you feel like you have a system where you can churn them out well. And hopefully, like by the end of the session, you have that system. I just wanted to reiterate, like, that's how important the hooks are. All right, let's get into the meat of it. So the second section, like I said, was about building blocks, the 4 hook components, and how to maximize the alignment of those components. So in this section, I'm going to break down those components, and then I'm going to talk about what alignment really looks like and how to optimize for it. Okay, so here's a common misconception. When most people hear the word hook, the only thing they think about is the written words on the script that they speak, verbally, right? But this is called the spoken hook. This is only one of 4 different components that combine together to create the full hook. These are the 4 components. There's the text hook, which is what you write on the screen. There's the visual hook, which is the graphics that you show, or like if it's you as the creator, you're the visual. There's the spoken hook, which is what I said, that's what you say verbally. And then there's the audio hook, which is any audio that's non-spoken, so music or sound effects. These 4 things combine together to make the full hook, right? Alignment of those things is critical. So here's why it's so important to understand these components. People, when they watch videos, can read and visually absorb faster than they can hear. So if you think about it, when you scroll, you pull up a video, immediately your eyes are taking in information and you're trying to assess what's going on. Then your ears catch up and you hear the words being said, and you're processing, is what I'm hearing matching what's on the screen, and is that for me? Then once you hear it, your eyes go back to the visual and you're trying to say, okay, is this what I thought it was or not? This is the process that the brain goes through subconsciously. It's visual to spoken back to visual. This is the order that people actually consume in the subconscious. So the key is, and we'll get to this, the secret to winning with hooks is max alignment. You have to have the visuals, the text on screen, and the spoken words align so that when people do that visual to spoken to visual, they get the same consistent comprehension. So this is a really critical piece, is max alignment. I'm going to talk about that a lot as we go. Cool, let's keep going. So the difference between 500 and 500,000 views is achieving this max alignment. And this is kind of the crux of the reason why. If I say something verbally, but the visual I show is different than what I say, then those elements are misaligned and the viewer's brain cannot comprehend what they're hearing or what they're seeing. It's confusing. And when there's confusion, comprehension goes down. This is called comprehension loss. So if you imagine the chart of a short form video, is like that decay curve. Right away in the hook, it drops steeply down and then it kind of levels out. So what's happening is people are confused and they're dropping as that confusion happens because they're like, nobody wants to be confused. They're scrolling. They're like, I don't know what's going on. They bounce. So your goal is to make sure the hook eliminates confusion, increases comprehension. And the way to do that is by aligning, I always go like this, aligning the visuals with the text with the visuals with the text with the audio spoken, right? So we have to minimize confusion. It's very critical. Now I'm going to pull up, in order to play the audio, I have to like switch the tab every time. So if I'm not playing the tab I'm talking about, just let me know. I've got a bunch of tabs up top. I'm going to start switching with the examples. I'm going to pull up 2 examples. These are both from me. As we go, we'll have examples from other creators, but I just wanted to start with mine. The first example is going to be a video that got 14 million views, which has really good alignment. The second example is one with bad alignment that only got 40,000 views. And I'm going to explain why, but let me just show you quickly. So this is the first one. Let me just play the hook for everyone here. And what I want you to do is watch the full totality of the hook. What I'm saying, listen to what I'm saying, watch the visuals, and then read the text on the screen and ask yourself, is it clear what's going on and are these aligned or not? All right, let me play this.
Check this out. These are called life-size floor plans. You can literally walk through your exact home design before you build it. And I think this is the future of how people are going to build their homes. Now,
okay, so just that. So in the chat, I want you to write right now, how well do you feel like that was aligned? Like, was it clear? Was there anything unclear? Like, drop your thoughts in the chat right now. And I'm going to break down kind of my assessment of why this worked so well from a hook component perspective, right? So this is the life-size floor plan video, right? So what was the spoken hook? I said, these are called life-size floor plans. You can literally walk through your exact home design before you build it. Okay, the visual hook was showing clips of people walking through the floor plans of their home. The text hook, I said future of home design, and then I said life-size floor plans. The audio hook was just chill music, nothing crazy. So what is the assessment here? The assessment is the text and the visuals, the images of the floor plans and the text that literally says life-size floor plans, those perfectly aligned with what I was saying in the hook. And so it deepened this rabbit hole. We'll get to the curiosity loop. We'll get to that in a second, but it deepened the curiosity in your mind because you were clear. So you were like, oh, wow, this is interesting. Walking through the floor plans, I wonder what this is, how I could get it, how much it costs. Like, you start opening these loops in your mind of curiosity, but the reason you're able to open those loops is because you were clear. Now let's watch an example of one that I made that I think was less clear. Okay, so let me switch to this one. Let's watch this one in the same way.
check this out. This company is sending shipping containers into space. But here's the crazy part. They're not using rockets. Instead, they're building a space cannon to shoot them into orbit. It's insane. The company.
All right, so we'll stop right there. So similarly, I want you to write in the chat, were you as clear on this one? Obviously, I'm kind of leading the witness here. Like, this was the worst of the two, but like, were you clear on this one? And what, if not, why were you unclear? Right? Everyone write in the chat for a second before I switch back. Cool. So let me explain why this was less clear. And like, obviously, when I made that video, I knew this less. And so I would have fixed this if I knew it. But this video was about the long shot thing. Basically, this company is building a cannon that's going to shoot stuff into space. Pretty interesting. So the spoken hook was this. This company is sending shipping containers into space. But here's the crazy part. They're not using rockets. Instead, they're building a space cannon to shoot them into orbit. Okay, so that was the spoken. The visual hook was me showing clips of space shuttles in space and then a homemade PVC pipe cannon. That was like that last thing. The text hook, space cannons are awesome. Now, why did this not work? It didn't work because my spoken hook talked about sending shipping containers, but the visuals showed rockets and space shuttles. So that's a slight disconnect. Then the text said space cannons, but I didn't really show a space cannon. I showed some random pipe thing in a garage. So the problem is I didn't have the best visuals to visualize what I was saying. I should have changed my words, but because I didn't, it was kind of confusing as you watch it. That slight amount of confusion makes you wonder, what is this? Instead of the curiosity that I want you to feel, which is like, what's going to happen with the cannon, et cetera, right? So this is an example of poor alignment. And because it had poor alignment, that's why it didn't have as many views, because way more people dropped off during the hook. So This is just a quick example to illustrate the importance of alignment and how it shows up. Now we'll talk a lot more about alignment as we go through the examples later, but I just wanted to share a couple like as we talk about it. So what are the takeaways on this section? The first one is you need to think about your hooks cohesively from the beginning. As you write your spoken hook, do you have a sense for what the text and the visual hook should be that would best align with those words? If you don't have a sense for that and you're trying to like throw it together at the end, there's a good chance you're going to end up with a misaligned hook that is just suboptimal. So that's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two is in section 6, which is the framework, the checklist. I'm going to break down the exact tactics for how to gut check if you have the alignment or not. So for now, just keep in mind, I want everyone to so far to just in their mind be like, okay, there's 4 components, not one: text, audio, spoken, and visual. 4 components, and I need them to be aligned. So far, like those are the seeds that should be in your brain. Okay, let's keep going. Now, this section is around psychology, and I think this will be the DNA shift that changes how you approach everything. So I really want everyone to lock in on this section. This will probably be like 20 minutes, but I really want people to focus on this. So in this section, I'm going to overview the viewer psychology as they consume the video, and then explain how we can use that psychology to better engineer hooks. Okay, so as I mentioned before, the only job of the hook is to make sure the viewer opts in and keeps watching. That's all we have to do. Now, before I say how do we get them to opt in, really quickly, because this is a common thing that comes up, education versus entertainment content. This is the thing you have to understand. All viewers are subconsciously seeking value when they're watching videos. Every single person wants value. That's why they go. That's why they get the dopamine hit. That's why they go and scroll. Everyone wants value. Value can come in 2 forms. Either educational value, which is usefulness, right? So education is typically a tactical piece of information, a tip, a framework, a case study, a resource that gives value by solving a pain point to unlock some desire, right? So an example of an educational value would be, I watched this video about taxes and it gives me a helpful resource for saving money by deducting my business expenses in some way. Okay, we're all clear on that. Like that's educational content. Now, a lot of people think entertainment content is no value. That's not true. Entertainment content, the value is interest. It's interesting, right? So entertainment content is a story that gives you value by creating an emotional response against some interest. So for example, I watched this video about a murder mystery and it created some shocking or suspenseful emotional roller coaster, right? So you get value on both. And the reason I call this out is because depending on regardless of what type of content you're making, educational, entertainment, the goal is you need the hook to indicate the incoming value. The point of this session is not to debate whether your content strategy should be to make educational entertainment. That's for some other workshop. But ideally, you need to make sure that the psychology triggers the value. And the beauty is people cannot outrun their psychology. The same psychology triggers work for education and entertainment content. So I just want to set the stage there. That's a common question we got in the pre-field. A lot of people were saying, can you talk about hooks different from education and entertainment? There's a ton of differences, but the psychology is the same. So that's why I wanted to call that out. Okay, so let's keep going. This is really to me, like the magnum opus of the whole thing. To get a hook, to hook the viewer, all you have to do is create an on-target curiosity loop, right? Everyone who's taking notes right now, write this down. On-target curiosity loop. That's all you have to do. So what does that mean? On target means that the topic covered in the video is of interest, is relevant to the viewer. It's like on target to their interest set. Okay, that's on target. Curiosity loop is there is some intrigue that is created in the viewer's mind, typically like an unanswered question, right? And the reason people call it a loop is because there's this circular loop that curiosity creates. A question pops in your mind, you get a little bit more information, that answers some of it, but then a new question pops, more information, new question, more information, and it loops you down this like curiosity rabbit hole. So all the hook really has to do is build an on-target curiosity loop. If you accomplish these 2 things, they're hooked, guaranteed, at the base psychology level. And for everyone watching that's thinking, this is interesting, but it's like very theoretical, this is on purpose. I'm trying to go through the psychology and the theoretical building blocks. We'll get to a ton of examples in a second where you can see this actually making sense. But the light bulb goes on once you understand the building blocks. All right, so on-target curiosity loop. Okay, let's keep going. In layman's terms, what does this really mean? If the viewer is certain the video is about something they care about and the hook opens an unanswered question or point of curiosity in their mind, they're going to stick around to keep watching. On-target curiosity loop. Okay, perfect. Now let's break down each of those components and how you actually engineer on-target and curiosity loop. Okay, so let's talk about on-target. This is the easier of the two, to be honest. So when you're thinking about how do I make sure my hooks are on target, the question you should be asking yourself is this: how do I ensure that we are properly communicating what the video is about so the viewer can assess if it's on target for them or not, right? It sounds stupidly simple, but the viewer has to be clear what the video is about. If you don't make that clear, they don't know if it's for them and they're confused, they will bounce. So when it comes to the viewer's understanding of whether or not it's on target, there are really only three paths. Either yes, they are clear that it's on target and they're going to stay. No, they're clear, but it's off target, so they're going to bounce. That's fine. They wouldn't have been interested anyway. Or it was unclear or confusing. We didn't make it clear what the topic was about to be. And so they bounce because they don't want to be confused. This is the worst case scenario when they're confused because it may have been for them, right? So how do we make our hooks so that we can communicate what the video is about so that they can judge if it's on target? How do we do that? The way we do that is with a combination of rapid context, clarity, installation, and comprehension, these things. And I'm going to explain this. These are kind of like the terms, the building blocks to build this up. So in order for a viewer to understand if this video is about a topic they care about, you need to tell or show them what the video is about as soon as possible. Again, sounds stupidly simple, but so many hooks don't do this. This is rapid context. You got to tell them what's coming or they won't know if they should stay, right? It's really critical. I recommend communicating this rapid context in the first sentence. So let's just break down two examples. This will make it really real for people. Let's break down two examples and show why this is so critical. The first example is this. Imagine I had a video where the spoken hook was this: guys, this story blew my mind. You're never going to believe this. And on screen, I had the text "crazy story" in big bold. I'm not a girl in this case, but let's say it was a girl on screen and I was she was talking in the bedroom, just on her bed, just talking. Imagine that was the hook. If that is the hook and this is your first sentence, guys, this story blew my mind. You're never going to believe this. You are betting the entire hook, the entire video really, on the viewer's interest in opting in because of the messenger, in this case, the girl or me. And the reason why you're betting on that is because you don't know what she's talking about. Guys, this story, you're never going to believe this, could be anything. It could be about any topic. And so she, in this case, she is delaying the clarity of the topic to at least sentence number 2, if not later. That's a huge mistake because the only people that will stay are people that are interested in whatever her, maybe they know who she is, right? It's a much smaller TAM. Contrast that with something like this. Imagine if your spoken hook was this: if your skin looks like this in your 30s, you might have a problem. And then the text hook was skin tips for 30-year-olds, and the visual hook was the same girl on the screen, but this time she's leaning into the camera, she's pointing to some skin thing or acne on her cheek. Imagine that hook. Now that works way better because in this case, just after the first sentence, you can immediately assess the topic of this video is about skin health for people in their 30s. So right away, you have more information to decide if you want to stay. Now, if you don't care about skin health, you're going to bounce, but you would have bounced either way. At least now, if you do care about it, you can decide to stay. And so this is kind of what is a great example to illustrate the importance of rapid context and helping someone assess if the video is on target for them quicker. So that's one component of the on target thing, rapid context. That's honestly the biggest component. Now let's keep going. While context is what we say, comprehension is how effective the words and the visuals were at communicating the point we were actually trying to make. So again, this sounds really simple, but did the viewer understand the words you're saying? So far, I've been going for 30 minutes. And my job is to help you understand comprehend what I'm saying. If you're sitting there and you're like, I have no clue what he's saying, then you're not comprehending me and I'm not doing my job. Hooks are doing the same thing. In one sentence, you need to make sure they understand the words being said. Now, the way you get them to understand is by using fewer words, which is called distillation, simpler words, and clearer words, which is called clarity. Those things go together in maximizing comprehension. The biggest reason why viewers fail to assess if a video is on target for them, essentially because they're confused, is when they misunderstand the words you're saying, or the alignment of those words with the visuals don't make sense. Because when you're looking at a visual, right, a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000 pictures. When you're looking at a visual, you're trying to comprehend what the visual is saying. So you're going to extract some comprehension. When you hear what I say, you're going to extract some comprehension. If you're not clear what that is, and those don't align, they're confused, right? So it's really critical that you increase comprehension. And I'm going to go through like tactical tip by tip in the checklist for how to do that. But just understand, like, they have to understand what you're saying. The next part is this, and this is actually like a really helpful tactical tip. Another way to make the video, to make the hook feel on target for someone, is direct relatability. And this means using the words you and your instead of the words me, my, or I. So when you say you, like if you have skin problems, you're speaking directly to the viewer. It's impossible for them to misunderstand if it's for them, if you're saying it's for them. However, if you say I, like I had a bunch of skin problems in my 20s, they then have to pause and guess, do I see myself in the creator? Will I have those same problems or not? It's a slight pause that could cause a lack of comprehension. So this you, your versus me, my, I is a really great way to help people opt in to say that the video is on target for them, right? Because if the viewer doesn't feel like the topic is for them, they're going to bounce. And this is a really important point. We don't get to decide what the viewer is interested in. We can only communicate clear enough for them to decide if our video is in that subset. That's how you have to think about. As long as it's clear, you did your job. And so what are the tactical, the walkaway tactics for this first half? Remember, on target curiosity loop. So this is all in the on target part. What are the walkaway tactics? A, use short and simple words that increase clarity. 6th grade reading level. Don't use big words. Use simple words that everyone can understand. Number 2, use the minimum amount of words to increase the distillation. The fewer words they have to navigate through to get the meaning, the better. So try to make it distilled and as minimal as possible. Number 3, use you or your instead of me and my to increase the relevance and relatability immediately. Number 4, and this is kind of the first point, say what the video is about directly by giving rapid context in the first sentence. Don't mess around with fluff that is not on topic and doesn't give context, because they won't be able to opt in. So your goal is to do everything you can to increase the overall comprehension of the words. And this is a great check, right? If you read the first 1 to 2 sentences of your script and you think, oh, that could kind of be taken like multiple ways, I hope they don't misunderstand it. If you feel that, rewrite it to close all of those wrong paths so there's only one path, right? You want stupidly clear comprehension is the goal, unmistakable clarity. One more example in this section before we move on. Which of these 2 hooks is clearer? Option 1 is this: I got tons of new customers when I improved my storytelling. Or if you want to improve your storytelling, these 3 guides are a goldmine. Which of those 2 is clearer and better? You may think option 1 is better because it's shorter and it references proof, right? It's like, I got tons of customers when I did this thing. So you're like, oh, it's proof, it's good. But there's 2 problems with it. First, I have to decide if as the viewer, if I see myself in the creator, and if the customers they got are similar to the customers I got, and if the tactics they used are similar to what I used. And I'm constantly running through those questions in my mind as I'm listening to the video, which is a problem. That's distracting me from comprehension. The second thing is, this sentence in a vacuum could be comprehended in multiple ways, right? I could say, is the next thing going to be about storytelling? Or is it going to be about a story for how they use those tips? I'm not sure. And again, I'm pausing. I'm potentially confused. When they're pausing, it's a problem. Compare this with the second option, which is much harder to misunderstand, because it feels like it's for me. If you want to improve your storytelling, these 3 guides are a gold mine. I'm extremely clear that this is about improving storytelling and getting guides to do it, and it's for me. So it's slightly more words, right? But it's way clearer and harder to misunderstand. So that's an example of the kind of like rapid context and on target. Okay, now before I go on, because I'm just going to grab a sip of water right here, put in the chat, out of 10, how clear are you on the on target thing? Is everyone good and clear about what I mean when I say on target? Yeah, nice. Seeing a lot of 10s. This is great.
Real-time comprehension.
Real-time
there.
comprehension. That's eating the dog food, as they say. Okay, let's go to the next one. So the other half is curiosity loops, right? Remember, so it's on target curiosity loop. At this point, the viewer should be clear what the topic is, and they're deciding that it's on target for them. That's half the problem. The other half, though, is getting them curious enough to want to keep going, right? It can be on target, but if the video is not interesting, they're not going to keep watching. And so the question you need to ask yourself here when you're making your hooks talking about curiosity loops is this: how do we ensure that we will open a curiosity rabbit hole for the viewer to go down? How can we guarantee that they're curious about this thing? That's the second half. Okay, so the best way to curate curiosity or create curiosity is by setting up contrast. This is the other God tier frame. And I've talked, if you've watched a lot of my YouTube videos, you've heard me mention contrast. I'm gonna explain it again here. Contrast is the most powerful psychology concept in all of content, right? And I'm gonna make it really simple. What is contrast? Contrast is essentially the distance between expectations and reality. You believe A, I tell you B, that distance is contrast, right? So it's like everybody does this thing, but actually the winners do this thing. That's contrast. The bigger that distance, the more contrast between what you currently believe and some new alternative, right? So I just mentioned this. Now, here's a few examples to break down why contrast is so powerful and kind of like how it makes sense in the world of video. First, example number 1, imagine that I believe all apples are red. And so does everyone on this call. Everyone believes apples are red. But then I show you a purple apple, the first one that anyone has ever seen. Well, that purple apple is pretty curiosity inducing. Like, that's pretty interesting. And the reason why it's interesting is because no one has ever seen a purple apple, but they're all comparing to all the red apples that they've seen before. That's the expectation versus reality. The contrast between all red apples and a single purple one is large. Now, if I show you the 1,000th purple apple, it's not curiosity inducing anymore because everyone's seen a purple apple. Expectations is purple, reality is purple, there's no contrast. So that's one example. Here's example number 2 that'll make more sense in the business context. If I believe all CEOs wake up at 4 a.m. to start working, but then I meet one that says he or she wakes up at noon every single day and they still have $1 billion company, well, that's pretty curiosity inducing. That's pretty interesting to me. The fact that this person wakes up at noon on its own is not that interesting. But when compared to my expectation, my current belief that all CEOs wake up early, and then I found one that violated that, that distance is contrast. It's comparing the two things. That's very interesting. The last example of contrast, if Prince Charming is in a story and he's walking in the forest on a horse, that's not very curiosity inducing. But if a dragon comes out of nowhere and starts attacking the prince, all of a sudden things get interesting. Why is that interesting? Is the dragon attacking the prince on its own interesting? Kind of, but what really makes it interesting is the change in state of going from walking calmly to attacked ferociously. That is expectation versus reality, contrast, right? So contrast exists everywhere. Once you know to look for it, everybody who's a good storyteller is setting up misdirections. They're saying A versus B, B versus A. That distance is contrast. The more contrast you have, the more interesting something is, the more curiosity inducing it becomes. Right, so this is a clear, important concept to understand. Now, how does contrast actually show up in video hooks? Right, like the Prince Charming example is cute, but like, how do we actually turn this into hooks? There's 2 types of ways you can actually write contrast. There's stated contrast and there's implied. I'll go through an example for both. Stated is when you state both A and B explicitly. You say it. So, for example, imagine I had a hook that was like this. If you want to save money on your taxes, stop putting money in your 401k. Instead, open a smart yield harvest account. It's what all the rich people are doing. right? So in this case, the 401k is the common belief. That's the expectation. What I'm introducing, the contrarian reality, is the smart yield harvest account. So I'm stating A to get you leaning on A, then I'm introducing B. When you hear that as a viewer, and we validated that you care about saving money on taxes, you freeze and you get interested and curious because you're like, wait a second, what I'm doing, there could be something better. Let me stay and listen. So that's stated contrast, A versus B. Now, the other way to do it, which is a little bit smoother, in my opinion, is implied. And implied contrast is where you say the contrarian take and you imply against the field of everything else that it's different, right? So for example, what if I just said, if you want to save money on your taxes, use a smart yield harvest account. This is the biggest hack rich people are using. In this case, I never stated the common belief with the 401k other than to imply that the common belief was everything else except the smart yield account. And this leaves the contrast comparison a bit more up to the viewer. This way, the viewer in their own mind can be like, oh, I've been doing 401ks. I've been doing nothing. They can fill in the blank with what they've been doing. As long as it's not the contrarian thing, there will be contrast and it will hook them. So those are the two different ways, stated contrast or implied. And again, I'm going to show you a bunch of examples and break down where the contrast comes in right now. But again, building blocks. We're close. We're getting to the end of the building blocks piece. But that's how contrast works, right? So these are the tactics, the summaries on the curiosity loop piece. Number one, figure out what the contrarian take or the alternative reality that you have on your topic that other people don't have. This could be a legitimately new piece of information that you know that nobody knows, or it could be some different angle that you're taking that people haven't heard before. You've got something new that people haven't seen. The second thing is you need to understand what is the common baseline or the common expectation that they already have. It's tough to build the contrast if you don't know what they already believe, like what the masses believe. So you need to kind of have a sense for like, okay, I'm talking about lighting tips. I believe the lighting should be at 45 degrees and up here. Everyone else believes the light should be straight on. Okay, perfect. Now you know there's a contrast there, so you can use that to hook somebody, right? The third piece is you need to create the contrast between those two things, right? So that's the tactic. Now, I want to go through a couple examples and explain, just like we did for the other ones, I want to explain this in practice. Okay, so the first one is going to be an example from me. The second one is going to be an example from somebody else. So this is a tech video that I made, and it's about a headband that you can wear, and it will help you go to sleep faster. Okay, so I want everyone to watch the hook. Let me switch the tab. I want everyone to watch the hook like you did for the last one. And this time, in your mind, I want you to think, what is the contrast that's being set up here, right? And then I want you to write that in the chat once you watch it. Okay, so let's play this.
Check this out. This headband is going to revolutionize the way we sleep. It's called the Elamine. And the people that use it fall asleep way faster than normal. It's pretty cool.
Okay, I can play it one more time. Let me play it one more time just in case it was too fast.
Check this out. This headband is going to revolutionize the way we sleep. It's called the Elamine. And the people that use it fall asleep way faster than normal. It's pretty crazy. Now,
cool. So everybody put in the chat what you think the contrast that I set up in there. And it's subtle, right? Like it's not as crazy as like, whoa, purple apple, red apple. It's not as crazy, but it gets you subconsciously. So right in the chat, I'm going to switch back to this. Okay, so let me break this down. So there's actually two contrasts in this, which is cool. So just for everyone to see, the spoken hook that I said was this. This headband is going to revolutionize the way we sleep. It's called the Elamine, and the people that use it fall asleep way faster than normal. Okay, the text hook was magical sleep headband, and the visual hook was the B-roll of people putting the headband on and falling asleep. Okay, so let's break this down. And I'm both going to talk about why is this on target? Like, how did it get the viewer to believe it's on target? And then the contrast. So first, the on target piece. In the very first line of the hook, I was extremely clear to explain that this video is about a headband that would change the way you sleep. This communicates to the viewer that the video is going to reference both tech, some headband thing, and sleep. So if you're interested in either tech and or sleep, you could then opt in after just one line. Rapid context, very clear, hard to misunderstand. I also added the magical sleep headband text hook to further reinforce that. So that's another example of like on target. Pretty good, first line, pretty hard to misunderstand that. Let's go into the contrast. The first contrast is what I did in the first line. So in the first line, I said, revolutionize the way we sleep. And this is an example of implied contrast. The contrarian reality is that there's some way to sleep better. And the baseline expectation for everyone is anything but that, right? So like if you have any problem sleeping at all, you're like, whoa, there's going to be something here. There's contrast there. So that is an example of implied, very subtle, but it works super well in someone's brain because it triggers the pain they already have. Now, the second example of contrast, which I think is more obvious, is the stated contrast. So I said that in the third line. So in the third line, I directly created a huge contrast moment by saying the people that use it fall asleep way faster than normal. And what's the stated contrast? I'm saying there's people and they're slow to fall asleep is the baseline. They're gonna fall asleep faster is the contrarian reality. Contrast, very clear. And again, like I'm clear on the topic, building the contrast, which makes you curious. When you see just this, if you have the problem of not sleeping and you think there's a solution that's different, you're hooked, right? So that's how this first example works. The combination of these contrasts plus the topic clarity makes it almost impossible for a viewer to not fully understand what this video would be about and curious enough to want to keep watching. That video got 3.4 million views on Instagram. So that was a pretty good example. Let's watch a second example that's not me, that is more educational business focused. So this is from a guy called Yasin. You may have seen this guy before. Funny guy, makes like content about content stuff. So I'm going to play this one just like I did the last one. And I want you to, again, this one's quicker. So it's more masterful, I would say. Did the whole thing in one line. Watch this one. And then again, I want people in the chat to write down what is the contrast that he built to create the curiosity and how did he do that? Okay, so I'll play this now.
Steal these viral hooks. If your ex looks like why
All right, one more time.
you're steal these viral hooks. If your ex looks like why you're
Okay, that was fast. Like it's very fast. So hopefully the screen isn't, or the audio is not lagging. But let's explain. People drop in the chat. So he said, steal these viral hooks. Drop in the chat how it created any contrast that would drive curiosity for you to want to keep watching. And yeah, I also don't know why he's singing, but it seemed to work. Okay, so let's break this down. He said, steal these viral hooks. He was singing. On the text hook, he had the word 7 viral hooks written on the whiteboard before all the cardboard stuff. And then the visual was him holding the whiteboard with cardboard taped over the words as he tears them off one by one. So let's break this down. This is a really good example of achieving both on target and contrast curiosity in just 4 words in the same sentence. Very good example of this. So on target, how did he do this? By saying steal these viral hooks, he's both communicating there is something worth stealing and that the video is about viral hooks for content. So if you make content and you want to write better hooks, this video is probably going to help you. The text hook also states 7 viral hooks, which matches perfectly. Great alignment. So for an on-target perspective, you're pretty clear the video is about hooks. Great. Now the contrast. In this case, he's using implied contrast. His contrarian reality is that he has some hooks that are proven because they've gone viral. And the common baseline is that you do not. So the field is non-virality. The contrast, the contrarian, is he has some viral hook. That builds subconscious contrast, which drives curiosity. It can be very subtle, but that is the reason people stay, right? So those are 2 examples specifically related to this. Many more examples later that we're going to get to in a second. But just as a summary for this section, to get a hook, to hook the viewer, you need to create an on-target curiosity loop. On target, the topic you're covering is of interest to the viewer. Curiosity loop, they're intrigued by some unanswered question in their mind. If you plant the on-target curiosity loop in their mind, it's going to hook them every single time. Okay, so that wraps the psychology building blocks section. We're going to get more tactical now in terms of examples. But before I go on, again, can people drop what out of 10 in terms of clarity do you feel so far, like in terms of understanding what I've been saying? Can you guys drop a score? Nice, 13.4. That's great. Okay, 8. For the people that are dropping 8, we definitely want to get that up to a 10. So make sure to put your questions for, like, if you had to distill your confusion into one question, put that in the Q&A so that we can see. I'm seeing most 10s. That's good. Okay, let's keep going. So the next section is around hook structures. And this is where content, I kind of approach it like a scientist instead of an artist, right? So an artist is kind of like watching stuff and trying to like get a sense for the vibe of what's going on. A scientist is more like, let's break everything down into variables. Let's stack those variables together. Let's run experiments. Let's use the data to validate or unvalidate that combination. So what I've done here is I've built a full hook database for everyone on this call. I'll show you the database here. Every single hook, and I'll explain how I did this, but every single hook has the spoken hook, the framework, tags around the structure, the visual hook, the different aspects of the visual hook, the text hook, the layout of the text hook, the motion of the text hook, every link to the video, all the niches, all the views, it has everything. You'll never find a better hooks database more comprehensive than this. Now, why did I put this together? I put this together because I wanted to show that you can take every winner and break it down into Lego pieces, extract what was working for those winners, and then try to rebuild those Legos into a way that's different, where you remix off of the proven winner. So what I did there, and the next section after this, I'm going to show you the research process I did. So I'll teach you guys how to do that. So to explain like how I pulled this, but every video in here is a top 15 video from the creator. So if you took me, I went and I found what are my top 15 videos, what are the hooks of my top 15 videos, and then are there patterns, right? So that's what I did. And again, like this is how I want you to think of it. These 4 components, spoken, visual, audio, text, think of those like big boxes. In each box is a bunch of different Lego pieces. You got the square ones, the flat ones, the tall ones, whatever, like a bunch of different pieces. Every hook is just one piece from each of those boxes stacked to make a little hook, right? Every single one of these in the database has a different combination of pieces. And so what I wanted to do is break those pieces down, like give you an inventory of all the different pieces so that you can choose to stack them in different ways. If you're new to content or you're struggling, the easiest way to try to get something that works is to replicate and remix a proven winner in your space that has already worked. So in order to get the proven winner and know what's already worked, you have to break it down into the pieces and build it back up, right? So let me just quickly, because I know we're approaching the top of the hour and I want to make sure we get to the examples as well. And I'll stay on this call as long as we have to go through, but I know people might have a hard stop at 2:30. So let me just quickly breeze through the components, and everyone's going to get the database so you can look at it. The first box or the first bucket is spoken hooks, right? So there's really like 8 different types of spoken hooks that I found. There's the fortune teller, which is building contrast, comparing the present to something in the future. It's like based around future curiosity. There's the experimenter, which is like, hey, you have a pain point. I experimented with something and found a solve. Let me show you. So you're creating the curiosity loop by like, you have a pain that's unsolved. I have a solve for you. There's the educational or tutorial structure, which is like, I'm going to teach you how to do something. You're building the curiosity through the same thing. You have a pain point. It's unsolved. I'm going to teach you something. There's the secret reveal. I just found something out that you didn't know. Let me tell you about it. The contrast is you didn't know, now you know. There's contrarian, which is like I take the opposite side. So I state a belief that's negative or contrary. There's comparison, comparing a few things. And then there's a question hook where you pose a question. Now, the reason I breeze through these is because you can actually use any of these for any topic, right? And if you look in the yellow, imagine I was making videos about backpacks. Every single one of these could work for a backpack video. So for the fortune teller, this backpack is going to change how people hike in the future, comparing present to future. For the experimentation, you can pack more hiking equipment in your backpack if you just do this. So it's implying like, I'm going to go through a pack with me type scenario. For the education tutorial, if you want to fit more in your backpack, you should use the 2-1-3 method. Again, that's like a teacher. For the secret reveal, there's a backpack brand nobody knows about, but all the celebrities are wearing. That's kind of revealing a secret. And on and on and on. So the point is this. These are the structures. If you were to pattern match the winners from the database, these are the structures. You can get a bunch of these by just going to the database, filtering by structure. And then if you're like, oh, I kind of want to learn how like the fortune teller ones work, filter by fortune teller and watch all those videos, and you can build this kind of like directory in your mind of options, but it's all here for you. So that's why I'm kind of going through these a little bit quicker. So the spoken structures, there's like a few different patterns. I'll go through the tactics in a second. Also for the spoken hooks, there's two options in terms of delivery. You can either sync what's being said with the visual, so it's like me talking on screen, or you can show visuals where the audio is playing underneath. Those are your two options. So if I was thinking about like, how do I build the Lego structure? I'm gonna pick one of these. I'm gonna pick one of these. That's my spoken hook structure, right? That I'm gonna test. And I'm gonna keep going, but just to tell everyone, like, the easiest way to figure this out is just take a video that already worked from a competitor and then extract the pattern, right? And I'll go through that in a second. But so that's spoken. Now with visual, I did the same thing for visual structures. When it comes to the visual, there's only so many different things you can do. These are the different visual choices that you can make. I have like a little graphic here to make it easier, but you could either have creator A roll, which is like the creator talking on the screen. You could have creator B roll, which this is my friend Alex. He's the creator, but he's not actually talking. It's like a visual of him, but he's not talking. The audio's underneath. You could have subject B-roll, which is not Alex, but like people. You could have non-subject B-roll, which is screen recording, no people in it. You could have examples. You could have image screenshots. You could have article screenshots. You could have arrows. These are the different things you could use in the visuals to stack up. Once you start watching videos on social media, you will start recognizing which blocks, which Lego bricks people are using. Again, the purpose of this section was just to like give you a definition, like a directory of the blocks so that you know what each one is, right? So that's the visuals. You can also move the visuals. So here's all the options for how you could move the visuals. You could also lay the visuals out in certain ways. So you could have full screen in the studio, full screen in the world, full screen with a graphic on top of it. You could have full screen B-roll. You could have B-roll with the circle, B-roll with green screen, split screen, right? There's only so many layouts that you could have. There's only so many visuals you could have. There's only so many words, patterns you could say. And so this is my attempt at like defining all of the possible options for you. Now, my goal is, this is a lot to take in live on a call in terms of like, do I know all the options, whatever. So the goal for this is I'm giving you this doc so you can then go through and look at all the pieces, watch a video in your space and be like, oh, I see, that's a creator A roll. They have the text coming across. Like you'll be able to kind of like talk to what the components are, okay? So I'm just gonna go past this fourth section because it's all broken down for you there and you're gonna get the database. Now, something that I wanted to show you before I get to the formula is this research process. I actually think a lot of you are gonna get a ton of value off just this. So pay attention to this pretty closely. How would you actually go about finding winning hooks in your space? How do you do that research? Like I've got this database for you where I've pulled some creators from like most spaces, but it's not comprehensive for every single space, right? So how are you gonna go do this research on your own? I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it. Okay, so, because the truth is, most people are not gonna start with a Notion database. The goal is that you train your brain to understand the patterns so that you don't have to use the database. And so this is how you would do the research. If I was starting from scratch today, and I was like, what do I make? How do I make it? How do I find winners? This is the exact process that I would run to do research on the winning hooks, okay? And by the way, sandcastles.ai, my tool is gonna have something that's like 10 times better than what I show you. In 4 weeks, it's coming out. It's gonna be insane. So, but let me just show you how I do this without Sandcastles. Okay, the first thing is you're gonna build a creator list of 20 to 30 accounts in your niche that specifically target your IVA, your ideal viewer avatar. So if you make if you're making videos for marketing agency owners, you're gonna go find other creators that make videos for marketing agency owners. If you're in that space, you probably already have one or two that you like. So you're gonna start there. If you're brand new and you don't have any that you like, I'm gonna show you how to start from scratch. But step one is you need to build this creator list. When you build this list, you're looking for people that have at least 50,000 followers and have posted at least like 30 to 50 times. You just wanna get people that know what they're doing so that you can make sure you're not pulling something that was just random luck. You want it to be validated, right? So you're gonna build this list. Now, where do you find this list, right? Let me go to my friend Oren. I'm going to explain how to do this with his account. Let's say, so Oren's, I don't know if everyone's seen Oren here, but he's pretty big on Instagram. He makes content about marketing and brand. So let's say I wanted to build a channel where I was also targeting chief creative officers, marketers, brands. And I knew Oren existed, and I was like, I really like this guy, but I didn't really know anyone else in the space. So he's going to be number one on my creator list. I'm going to grab his profile and just add it to a list, add it to an Excel sheet. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to who he's following. See this 1082 following? Click this. I'm going to start scrolling through who he's following, and I'm going to open any account that has over 50,000 followers that matches this type of content. So here's a guy, Brian Blum. He makes marketing content, 58,000 followers. Boom. Open that, grab him to my list. As long as you have one person to start with, you can run this following process, and it might give you 5, and then you pick one of those, and then you do it for that. You build out your list that way. So that's the easiest way to do it. Again, in Sandcastles, we'll make it way easier for you, but for now, this manual process is the way to do it. If you don't know Oren, and you're like, I want to make content for creative people, but I know nobody in the space, create a fresh Instagram account, new email, so the algorithm is not biased. Go into the search and start searching terms that your type of person would search for, your type of avatar would search for. So like content strategy, creative brand strategy. If you do this for 10 to 15 minutes, the algorithm will get pretty good at serving you content in the feed and in the explore tab that maps to that. Then you can build off of there, right? So this is either way, whether you start with an anchor person or you start with no one, you're going to build this creator list. Okay, so that's number one. Once you have that list, keep that list in a note, and you're going to run this process. Again, Sandcastles will make it way easier, but the way to do it right now is by using this thing called Sort Feed, sortfeed.com. So what Sort Feed does is it basically adds a layer on top of an Instagram or TikTok profile and resorts the videos in order based on views, likes, comments, whatever you choose. So I'm going to show you how I do this using Orange, right? So I go to my Chrome extension. I know you guys can't, let me switch the tab. I go to my Chrome extension. I don't think you'll be able to see, you're not gonna be able to see the Chrome extension, which is kind of annoying, but it looks like this right here, looks like that. Now you will be able to see what it does. So in the Chrome extension, you pick last 200 items and you sort by views. And you have to do it on the Reels tab or else it won't be able to sort. This thing is very finicky, so that's why the Sandcastles thing will be better. So now you're going to see this page reload. You see the yellow, how it's reloading? Basically what it's doing is it's analyzing all the videos and then resorting them. I picked his last 200 because I want it like in the last year or so. So it's at 144. Give it one more second and it will be done. And I'll show you that this basically takes all his videos and now resorts them in order. So you can see like 5.6 million views, 3.8 million, 1.4 million, 1.3. It's now in descending order. So what I can do is you want to right click open a new tab. You don't want to click on this because as soon as you click on it, it will get rid of the sorting. You're gonna have to resort. So what I did for the hooks database is I went through and I opened all of the top 10 videos for these people and I analyzed the patterns. What is he saying? What is he showing? What is the hook on screen? What is the pattern? Now that you have the building blocks and you have the way to research, you can just combine those together and you have unlimited patterns, right? So this is how I do this today. This works for getting ideas. It also works for hooks. Sandcastles will make this easier. We'll go over that when it's live. But that's the research process, right? So you're going to run that process. And then here's really the sauce, right? I made this database so that you guys have the scaffolding of all the pieces. So what you can do is you can come in here and we'll send you this link and everything will be filled out. Come in here, delete all the videos that aren't related to your space, clone the database, and then add in any new ones that you find in your research, right? Because this database is like a point in time thing. We're going to add to it, but like everything moving backwards, we've captured, but everything moving forwards, you're going to want to be scanning in your space and run that research process I just showed you once a week. If you find new patterns, put them in the database. That way you have one database that you can reference. So this is kind of the process to do the research today. Like I said, Sandcastles will be, I mean, it's going to be insane how because I've obviously designed this whole thing. So I know what people need. So when it comes down the next 4 weeks, it'll make it way easier. Cool. So next we're going to go into the actual framework, the checklist, but I just want to pause again. So far, what we've gone through is the tactics, building block psychology, on target curiosity loop, 4 hook components. You want them to be aligned. We went through the database. We went through how you research to find those patterns. Out of 10, can people put in the chat, where are we tracking? Is everyone clear? Hopefully we're exceeding expectations so far. Okay, nice. Now, I think these last 2 pieces is probably what everybody wants, but it's pretty critical to like have that foundational layer so it all makes sense. Okay, so we're going to move on to the framework and then the examples. That's all we have left. So let's talk about the framework. This is the 5-minute, 10-minute checklist that you should use when you're writing a hook with specifics, okay? First thing I'm just going to go over is like the strategy of it, and then the 5 pieces are right here. So I'll get to that in 1 second. Okay, so what is the strategy? This is the order that you should attack building the hook, okay? The first thing you should do, step 0, understand if you already have visuals to use. Maybe you found some footage on the topic, maybe you found some article, maybe you found some other creator that you're remixing. Do you have visuals that you want to use for sure? Because if you do have those visuals, it will help skew the words you should say to match those visuals. So like step 0 is start with the visual if you have it. Now, if you don't have it, we'll talk about how to make it, how to choose it. But like if you have an anchor visual, use it. Like for example, that one with the headband, I knew the company released a teaser and I saw those clips with the person putting the headband on. So I was like, oh, I'm going to show that. That allowed me to know that when I wrote my spoken hook, I could say this headband because I knew I'd be able to show this headband. So it helps if you know what visuals you have. So that's step number 0. The pre-step is check if you have visuals. Okay. Step 1, you're going to write the spoken hook, and I'm going to go through that in a second. You're going to pick one of the structures, and you're going to write the 1 to 4 lines on a Word doc. Okay. That's step 1. Step 2, if you don't have the visual from step 0, you're going to now identify what visuals you need to show on the screen to complement the spoken hook. If you're not using visuals, it's possible you might just be you recorded on the screen, no visuals. In that case, you are the visuals. That's like creator A roll. If that's the case, you're putting more emphasis on the text hook and the spoken hook being good, right? Because the visual is not going to be like that dynamic. It's going to be you sitting in the office, whatever. You can always make it more dynamic by adding better visuals. So step 2, after you've written the spoken hook, is like, what visuals do I need to complement that hook to increase comprehension, right? So you're going to have a couple options. You can either go shoot B-roll on your phone, you can generate graphics using AI, or you can film a full screen video of yourself just talking to it. You have some options. We laid those options out in section 4 in terms of like all your different paths for the visuals. But that's step 2. And again, just to be clear, I'm going to go through this one more time, but in detail in 1 second. This is just the strategy. Step 3, you're going to write the text hook. So you got the spoken hook written. We know what the visuals are going to be. Are we putting text on the screen? At the very minimum, you're putting captions, but are we putting some other title text on the screen? If you don't plan on using a visual hook because you're filming it yourself, like I just said, you got to put title text on the screen, or else people have no clue what they're watching until you say it. It just puts way too much risk on the spoken hook. So you got to put text on the screen. You're going to add this in the edit, but at this point, you just want to be kind of clear, like, what am I actually going to say? What am I going to write? Okay, step 4, you're going to record the video. And then step 5, you're going to edit the hook, right? And I'll go through a couple more tips in a second, but just on the edit, because we haven't really talked about the edit yet. So this is really important. When you're editing, you need to imagine every single viewer's eyes can only look at one spot on the screen at a time, right? And you don't have to imagine that because that's the truth. We can't look at 2 things at once. We can only focus on one thing at a time. So you have to ask yourself, have you edited it or used visuals and text in a way where the people are actually looking at where you need them to look so they can comprehend what is being said? If they're looking in the wrong spot and they take the wrong thing from it, we failed. So this is like a gut check. I want you to ask yourself these questions when you're editing. This is the last step, but I want you to ask yourself these questions. A, am I hooked when I watch the whole thing? Did it hook me or not? If it didn't hook you, it's because of lack of clarity, lack of pace. We'll go through those in a minute, but like, sounds stupid. Great question to ask when you watch it back. Am I hooked? If you're not hooked, you got to do it again. Second thing, are you clear on what the video is actually about? Is the clarity there, or are you confused? If you're confused, we got to rework on the alignment. And 3, are you curious enough to want to keep watching? These are like the 3, like if you're playing golf, you're like remembering in your head, keep my arm straight, keep my hand, like keep my grip. These are like your checklist things in your head, these 3 questions when you're editing. Okay, so this is the strategy for the checklist. Pre-step visuals, spoken hook, visuals, text, record, edit. Okay, you got that. Let's go through the exact tactics. This is like the most tactical that we can possibly have in terms of each of those. Okay, this is the checklist. Like I want you to copy this, put it on the fridge. Every time you make a video, this is the checklist. Okay, step 1, remind yourself of the strategy. Perfect. This takes 3 seconds. We have these 4 pieces. Awesome. Okay, next. Step 2, spoken hook. The easiest mode for spoken hook is to just pick a validated spoken hook structure from the database or from your research and just copy it. You don't have to say the exact same words because you're saying X person did Y thing and got Z result. You can fill in your stuff and it's different, right? The easiest mode is to just copy it. If you want to write it from scratch, here's how we do it. The first step is you have to figure out what is the context that I need to communicate about this video so that the viewer can decide to opt in. That's number 1. In your mind, as you're writing, you should be like, okay, what do I need to tell them so that they can opt in? Step 1. Step 2, what is the contrast between what they currently believe and what I believe that I could use to get them interested? Do I know what those things are? Implied contrast, stated contrast. What are those things? Got to have that in your head. Step 3, can I communicate both of those things in a single sentence? If not, take 2 sentences. I've got all these examples below of this that we'll go through in a second. The best spoken hooks are the ones that build the most contrast. So again, are you building contrast? This is something I could have said earlier with the contrast, but I just want to hammer it home now. Size of contrast is based like this. Imagine you had 100 people in a room and your take on something, none of them knew. Everyone believed, 100 of them believed one thing, you believed another. That's massive contrast. If 50 believe one thing and 50 believe another, that's less, right? So when you're writing, you need to say, what is the context? Am I inducing curiosity with the contrast? How big is that curiosity? That's what you need to ask yourself. When you're speaking, like when you're recording the actual audio, speak with good pace and energy. Make sure the audio is clean and high quality. If you have heavy echo or a low monotone voice, that's gonna be a problem. So like bring up the energy. If you need a recommendation for the mic, these are the mics that I use, DJI wireless mics. These are a cheaper version that Hormozy uses. A lot of people use that like little circle thing. The Hollyland Lark M2, slightly cheaper. Pick one of these mics if your audio is not good. Use the fewer words is better, but use additional words if it helps increase potential misunderstanding. And if you trip up over your words when you're recording, do it again so you have a clear take. Now, I'll just say this. Many people on the call probably wanted a generator where you basically type in a topic and then it just writes the hook for you. That's what sandcastles.ai is. So if you want that, we have that already for you. This is more meant to be like, if you find a structure that wins, copy it. Or if you want to write something from scratch, take the structure and make sure you improve the context and you improve the contrast. This is the sauce for how you write spoken hooks. Okay, so this is the checklist on spoken hooks. All right, the next piece. The text hook. Again, the easiest mode, pick a validated text hook and just copy it. And when I say copy, what I mean is remix. Don't take the exact words, take the structure and remix it. But if you want to write the text hook on your own, here's how you would do it. The text hook needs to elicit curiosity and ideally some emotional reaction, either shock or surprise. You want to use the fewest possible words. You want to make the font as big as you possibly can without overwhelming on the screen. You want to make sure it's easy to read when you overlay the visuals. Use a font that's very easy to read. Keep the text hook eye level with the subject so that people look at the eyes, they look at the text. Don't cover the eyes, but like keep it as close to eye level as possible. And don't let the text hook be blocked by the overlays. When I say overlays, this is what I mean. On Instagram and TikTok, the little icons for the like and like the description and the username, these are going to block the stuff at the bottom. So don't put the stuff at the bottom. Make sure it's above so it doesn't get blocked by the overlay. Okay? These are all like tactical tips on the text hook, But again, the easiest way is just find what's already working and remix, okay? I'm gonna go to the visual hook. Before I do that, can people drop in the comments really quick? Is this making sense in terms of a checklist? Like, is this helpful? Cool. Okay, nice. I just want to make sure. I'm basically just screaming to myself in silence over here. So I just want to make sure everyone's tracking along. Okay, so the fourth piece, right? This is the checklist. So we've written the spoken, we've written the text. Here's the visual. Again, not to sound like a dead horse, easy mode. Look at the visual structure that already worked on a proven version, replicate a version of that. There's only so many choices you can pick in terms of layout and structure. Here's how you would do it from scratch in terms of like the tips that make the most sense. You want to use visuals that have enough motion and color to capture attention. A black and white image, unless it's animated, is not going to hold any attention. The brain reacts to subconsciously to color and motion, right? So it's very critical that the visuals you use have color and motion. If you're using creator A-roll, which is like you as the creator on the screen, the more attractive and happy you look, the better. I don't make the rules. Sorry, but that's the truth. So be happy, energized, bring energy. When you're recording, if you're like having a bad day, take a cold shower for 5 minutes, come back. The energy really does matter a lot. So that's how to increase kind of like the visual of you on screen. Try to include some initial motion or passive action if it's you on screen, right? Because if imagine, a lot of people know Alex Earl, right? She does the Get Ready With Me. It's just her. It's her in the makeup. So what is she doing to actually hold your attention? She's doing two things. When she starts out, typically she leans forward and then leans back, like she's touching her face or she's like putting her hair up or something. That motion pauses the viewer in a positive way. Another example of that motion is this one from Colin and Samir. Watch the beginning of this video. See how he turned and like the glasses were like kind of in the mirror moving? That motion, it triggers the brain to lock on because it can be confusing if you overdo it, but like that motion is really helpful. That's one thing. The second thing is passive action, which is called Pope in the Pool. Pope in the Pool means the name came from like, if you want to explain something to someone, but you show like a video of a Pope swimming in the pool. Everyone's like, why is the Pope swimming in the pool? It's so it's not distracting, but it's like random and you're kind of like holding on that. You got to be careful with this, but a good example is the Get Ready With Me, is the Alex Earl Get Ready With Me. Is like, you're listening to what she's saying, but because this passive action is happening here, it's kind of like holding your attention in a weird way. That's why those split screen gamer clips work. So again, it's better if you use visuals that show exactly what you're saying. But if it's just you on screen, try to infuse a little bit of this, if you can, to add a little bit more motion, right? So that's tips for creator A-roll. If you're using other B-roll, any other visuals, make sure the attention is flowing where it needs to in order to understand what's being said. Arrows, circles, different colors. Make sure that you're pointing the attention where it needs to, right? Here's a good example of that. This video, fitness space. He obviously doesn't have his muscles on the outside of his skin. He put this in with animation, right? But he's doing that because he wants you to look here. So like everyone looks here and he's doing it with color. That's super helpful because he's saying, if you want to grow your lats, which what he's talking about, or I think if you want to grow your lats, I lost my anatomy merit badge for that one, but basically he's showing you so that you lock on, right? So there's ways you can adjust the visuals to focus attention where you want them to look. Very important, okay? In terms of pacing, you want to switch the visuals every 1 to 2 seconds. Every time the visuals change, it kind of stuns the viewer into resetting where they're looking for 10 to 20 milliseconds. It's very helpful to do that. Don't do it too aggressively because then they can't actually comprehend. Okay, the last thing in the checklist is the edit. I've talked about this a little bit already. When you're editing the hook, you're looking for two things. One is comprehension via alignment. We're bringing it full circle. When you watch the hook back, do all the components feel aligned? Can you effectively understand what's going on, or are they a little disconnected? If you make videos and you haven't been performing well, I guarantee if you look at your hooks, they're misaligned. So you got to check the comprehension via alignment. And the last thing is pacing. If everything is aligned, but it's still not working, it's probably just too slow. It's not engaging them enough. So you need to increase the pacing when you're editing, right? These are the two pieces. Now, this is a good exercise after the hook is done to gut check if the hook is good, right? I want you to watch the hook back 3 times. The first time, I want you to watch it on silent, mute the audio. When you watch it on silent, are you clear what the stated topic is? And do you build a curiosity loop? That shows just the visual and text working. Then I want you to watch it a second time. Close your eyes. Just audio. Are you clear on the stated topic and the curiosity loop? Then I want you to watch it a third time, audio and video enabled. Watch the whole thing. Are you clear? The best hooks are so clear that you can watch it in silence or watch it with your eyes closed, like listen with your eyes closed, and it still works. So this is a good exercise to kind of force the alignment idea. So that's the checklist. Print this out, put it on the fridge. You got the strategy, you got spoken, you got text, you got visuals, you got the edit. This is what I would follow, as well as all the structures that we've went through in the database. Okay, now I want to be conscious of everyone's time. I'm going to go through all these examples because I think it's really helpful, and I wanted to make this interactive. We're almost at the bottom of the hour. You're going to get this doc after. For anyone that has to go, you're going to get the doc after. You're going to get the recording after. So we'll go through the recording here, and you'll still get it. It'd be great if everyone can stay longer. If you can, awesome. Before I move on to the examples, gut check. This is like final gut check of the teaching before we go into the examples. Let's say out of 100, because out of 10 stuff. Score out of 100, how good do you think this was at elevating your understanding on hooks and giving you something tactical as a system that you can then apply moving forward? All right, I see mostly high. I saw 70. So whoever put 70, go in the questions and be like, I put 70. This is what I wanted that I didn't get. But everyone else, it looks like it's doing pretty well. I also think it's hard to consume this much information in one shot. So you guys having the recording and having the doc, you'll be able to go through. Okay. So what I want to do on the examples, I've got 12 different categories. So I've got fitness, I've got marketing agency, social media content, AI automation, D2C products, podcast clips. I've got all these different categories. What I did is I went through, I took a creator, I found a video that they made that was a banger with a great hook. And I also found a video that they made that was a snoozer with a bad hook. And so what I want to do is I'm going to play them. And then I want everyone in the chat to use what you just learned and comment why you think it was good or bad. Like we'll go one at a time. And then we're going to break them down. And I think this is the best way to kind of like lock in the learning. Okay. So the first one we're going to do is fitness. So let me pull this up now. This is an example of a good hook. Let me share this. All right, so everyone watch this.
Some people squat like this and others like this. Which form is correct? Let me explain.
All right, let's watch it one more time.
Some people squat like this and others like this. Which form is correct? Let me explain.
Okay, this video got 12 million views, which is pretty wild. So everyone in the chat, drop in why you think this was a good hook. Why did this hold your attention? We'll give everyone 10 or 15 seconds to drop this in. Cool. So here's the explanation. The spoken text and visual hook is here. In the sake of time, I'll not reiterate all of these, but essentially this was about squatting. The reason why this works so well, immediately the context of the video was that this is about squat technique. The first thing you see, the first thing that they say is about squatting. Why do people squat like this? And so you're very clear. You can opt into that. But the real reason why I think this worked so well is because they built the curiosity loop and the contrast into the visual. This compares 2 forms of squatting. So anyone that can see themselves in the visual, A versus B, they're comparing themselves and they're guessing which is right. That holds everyone. The advanced, the beginning, like the contrast, it shows them both. So it does a really good job of holding people. I think the visual was the highlight on this one. Okay, let's go through the bad hook from this person. And let me share it now. Okay, I want everyone to do the same thing. We're going to watch the bad hook. And this is fitness. So the way I want you to think of this is like, if you're on this call and you make fitness content, this guy is one example that I would add to my creator list, and I would go through and be like, I would literally go through this exercise. What did his top videos do well? Oh, he showed A and B in the form. Okay, I can extract that as a visual structure and add that to my list. Maybe I can use that, right? So you should be thinking in these terms. Okay, let's watch this one.
Opinion for most
Time the audio.
For most natural lifters, a body fat of around 12 to 15% is the most sustainable physique. It's practical to maintain. You get the health benefits of.
All right, let's try one more time. Every time I refresh, I have to try to unmute the thing in record time, so I'm trying to get it timed perfectly.
Opinion for most natural lifters, a body fat of around 12 to 15% is the most sustainable physique. It's practical to maintain.
Cool. So drop in the chat why you feel this was suboptimal. What was wrong with this one? And if it was missing a contrast, which it was, what do you think would have been a better way to contrast it? What contrast would you have built here? The video's about body fat. Cool. Let me switch back to this. Okay, so in this one, he said, in my opinion, for natural lifters, a body fat of 12 to 15% is the most sustainable physique. He didn't have a text hook. He just used the captions. And then it was him doing a deadlift and like a shirtless pic. So why did this not work? First, he started with, in my opinion, which is the me, my, it also wastes space. Like that doesn't add any value. The context of this video was clear that it was going to be about body fat, but it was unclear what we were going to get out of it, right? So it was on target, but I wasn't clear on like where that was going to go. So that was a problem. And then like everyone's saying in the chat, the contrast was not clear because he said 12 to 15% is best, but there's no comparison, which kind of like ruins the curiosity loop. So if I were to write this one myself, I would have tried something like this. Bodybuilders make it seem like 6% body fat is normal, but if you want to look fit year round, 12 to 15% body fat is the best target. Here's how to get there in 6 weeks. This is an example of like, this is a little bit wordier, but the idea is I'm trying to trigger the comparison between what's normal and then what I'm talking about is the right range. Cool. So does that make sense? Give a thumbs up in the chat if that makes sense. Cool. Now, real quick, because I know people have to jump, I'm going to come back to examples. Let me just remind everyone about SFA really quick. So what we just went through for the hooks, this is one example, like I said, of the full end-to-end workflow. So if you're trying to get better at short form video, this is the type of like rigor and depth that we go into in SFA in all areas. So we have the full curriculum for everything. You get access to group calls where you can pull up your videos, pull up your hooks, and we'll review them live. And then you also get access one-on-one to me. So if you're interested in SFA, we're closing this link at 3:30. In 1 hour, this link is closed. We're not accepting anymore. We've only opened it for enrollment twice since we launched it. So if you're interested, shortform.academy/invite. That's the last time I'll mention it. But it's really the best way to level up with short form. Okay, let's go back to the examples. So we did fitness. Let's go to marketing agency. Cool. So this first one, I'm trying to decide how we do this. So, I kind of wanted to like surprise everyone. Like, is this good or bad? Maybe I'll switch the tab. I'll start here. I'm going to pull up a random one, and you're not going to know if it's good or bad. And then that way, people can really focus. Okay, so we're going to skip marketing agency. We're going to go to a different one. Okay, so I'm pulling this up. Okay, we're going to go to this one. This is social media marketing/content stuff. Not going to tell you if it's good or bad. Let's play this, and you guys watch it, and you tell me in the chat, is it good or bad? If good, explain why. If bad, not. Okay, ready, go.
Is rolling out a huge update. Here's everything you need to know. First,
all right, let's go one more time.
Is rolling out a huge update. Here's everything you need to know.
He said Instagram is rolling out a huge update. The audio is annoying with the button, but Instagram is rolling out a huge update. Here's everything you need to know. Okay, drop in the chat. Good or bad? Cool. All right, now let's go to the doc. Okay, so this was this guy's best performing video ever. And this just shows you, if you thought it was bad, I'm curious why You think it was bad? It was like a little lo-fi, right? Like it was him sitting in the ground, but like it can still work if you trigger the right psychology. So why did this one work? The spoken hook was Instagram's rolling out a huge update. Here's everything you need to know. The text hook was Instagram's new update. Watch this. The visual hook was the creator in his house. He had 2 different camera angles and the text came on screen and bounced. So why did this work? This had immediate clarity on the value for who should watch, right? If you care about social media and Instagram, immediate clarity. You're going to get their updates. There's some update that you need to hear, right? Now, the reason why I think this works so well is because the curiosity loop was maxed out. If you're focused on this world and you're like, they just rolled out a new update, here's everything you need to know. This is an example of like a future fortune teller hook. The future, there's some update you need to understand. The present, you don't know the update. Very critical for you to understand that information. Contrast is large if you didn't know what it is. The way he framed it is everybody thinks they don't know, right? So the contrast is comparing not knowing to knowing. That's why this did so well. That was an example of a very clear, easy to opt in, and large contrast with a large TAM. Okay, let me flip back to this. We're gonna pick a different one. And I'm not gonna alternate, so I'm gonna throw you guys off. If I was alternating, it would be too easy. Okay, this one is marketing agency.
Golf made $30 million last year by following this unique content strategy I like to call TDS. It's tease, document, and showcase. Here's how they do.
All right, let's play one more time.
Golf made $30 million last year by following this unique content strategy I like to call TDS. It's tease, document, and showcase. Here's how they do it. So Malvin,
Okay, so everybody drop in. Was this good or bad? What do you guys think? And then if good, why good? If bad, why bad? We'll give everyone 15 seconds. Cool. I guess I switched, so now everyone can see. So this was a really good video, good performing video on this channel. Not like a crazy, not in the millions, but pretty solid video. So let's explain why this was a good hook and where the potential areas for a problem could have been. So the spoken hook was Malvin Golf made 30 million last year by following this unique content strategy called TDS. Text hook was Malvin Golf $30 million content strategy. Visual hook, cinematic images of Malvin's content, which reiterates the content strategy was pretty good. Okay, so very aligned. Immediate context that the video is about to share a content strategy about a golf brand that was successful. Comprehension was maxed, and the hook components aligned super well. The contrast here was that they did something, again, like they had a strategy that you may not know, the knowing versus not knowing. That's a very, very common contrast. Now, here's why I think this was good, not great. He tried to name his strategy, TDS. Immediately, if you don't follow what that is or know the words, you could be confused. Also, if you don't know this brand, it holds way less weight, right? And so that's a potential con as well. He's going for a more niche marketing content type. He's not going for billions in the TAM, right? So it's a little bit narrower of an idea. But in terms of clarity, if you're interested in content strategy, saying X brand did Y dollars using Z content strategy, that's a really great structure, spoken wise, that you can be very clear on. And then if the visuals reinforce that, that's great. So that's why this was a good hook. Let's go to the next one. I'm gonna just put it here for now while I pick. I'm gonna scroll down a bunch. Okay, now this one is a bit more unique. This one is an AI studying tool. Like this is a D2C. It's not a D2C product, but it's like for consumers, like consumer software. It's an AI studying tool. So I want you to look at this one and let's watch this.
I saw this guy trying to watch our for our lecture before class. So I showed him this AI tool that does it for you in seconds.
Copy your video link. Go to your.
Okay, let's play it one more time. And I'm trying to give you a range of types of videos, right? So this is like something we have not gone over at all. Let's watch it one more time.
I saw this guy trying to watch for our lecture before class, so I showed him this AI tool that does it for you in seconds.
Okay. Okay, in the chat, good or bad, and if bad, let's say good or bad, if bad, why? If good, you don't have to say why good, because that was the point of the workshop. We're all clear on why good. All right, we'll give it 10 more seconds. Okay, so this was a terrible hook, the worst on the list. 700 views total. You can probably tell from the number of likes, it was weak. Now, why was this so bad? Let's analyze why this was bad. So the spoken hook was an AI voice, obviously AI, that said, I saw this guy trying to watch our 4-hour lecture before class. Captions, they had no text on there, it was just captions only. And then the visual hook was in-world B-roll of them opening a door to a lecture. They walked over to a student, and then the student was like doing something on the computer. Okay, so why did this flop? For one, the AI voice sounds extremely fake. The pacing and intonation made it kind of hard to actually hear what was being said. So that's like a pure clarity problem on the speech, not great. Two, the framing of the sentence, cramming to watch a 4-hour lecture before class makes no sense. You can't cram and also watch a 4-hour lecture. That doesn't make sense. So that was confusing to me. And then also, there's no contrast to the potential solution until the third sentence. So the speed for them to get to the point was too long. For all those reasons, I thought it was a terrible hook. I also thought the visuals didn't show what it was quick enough. So a better option would have just been to go straight to it. My friend just showed me how to cram for class, and then right away they're cramming. Tighter, clearer visual match. So that was an example of one that I thought was really poorly executed for like an AI software kind of UGC style video. Okay, now I know people are probably gonna have to drop. So I'll take suggestions in the chat of which category you guys want me to do next. We've got AI automation agency. We've got podcast clips, personal brand. We've got a wellness clinic, mortgage or real estate firm, design agency, tech and AI, Gen Pop, or just general storytelling. I may have opened up a nightmare scenario for Melvin, but if any,
I'm seeing an overwhelming want for the AI automation agency for sure. And then while you go through that, I'll try to parse through the rest.
All right, so I'll put this on here for now to hide it. All right, so you know it's going to be about AI automation. One is good, one is bad. So let's pick one here. Okay, here we go. All right, and the TikTok comments are coming in crazy, so sorry for that. Okay, let's watch this one. I gotta get the sound on. Okay, here we go.
I'm going to show you how you can create videos from simple prompts in seconds. All right, we're going to start by heading to ai.nvideo.io.
All right, let's try one more time.
I'm going to show you how you can create videos from simple prompts in seconds. All right.
Okay, so this was an example of just a single liner to show like, could it be quick? All right, let's switch back to this. Okay, so this video got 1.6 million views. And the crazy thing is when you watch some of these hooks, you're like, oh, there's no way, like that felt so easy. But if you really analyze it through the frame we just learned, it makes a lot of sense, right? So the spoken hook on this one was, I'm gonna show you how to create videos from simple prompts in seconds. Text hook, didn't have one, just captions. Visual hook, creator A-roll slow zoom looks off screen as it transitions. So like, this was as low frills as it gets. So if you're somebody who's trying to make AI content, AI like automation content, and you're like, I don't want to spend a lot of time with the graphics and visuals, when you do your research and you see this and you're like, wait a second, there was only captions, the visual was just him, and he only said one sentence and it got 1.6 million, bing, like that should light off something in your head like, yo, there's something here in the words he said that were great. So let's analyze why the words were so great. First, it's super clear and impossible to misunderstand. I'm going to show you how you can create videos from simple prompts. Create videos from simple prompts in seconds, impossible to misunderstand, extremely clear, also very simple, but that's kind of the point. Anyone who watches just that and then watches him go kind of to the next sentence where he starts screen sharing, immediately you're like, okay, I'm gonna show this. he also says for you. He says I'm in this case, but not in the context of him. He's like, I'm going to show you how you can create simple prompts in seconds. So it's for you, anyone who's trying to create content for you. And in the contrast is the wasn't possible, now is possible, right? So if you hear create videos in seconds, anyone that makes videos is like, videos take hours. He's saying in seconds, massive contrast, I'm hooked. It really is that simple in terms of like making sure that's clear. Now, if he said, hey guys, I just found something that's going to be really wild, I'm going to show you. If he started with that sentence, you should just cut that first sentence because that doesn't give any context, and it also doesn't help set up the contrast, right? So this is an example of like simple but effective. Cool. Let's just go to the bad one from the same guy right here. I'm going to explain why I think this one didn't work.
What if I told you I created this entire website in just 30 seconds? I used Durable's AI.
Okay, one second.
What if I told you I created this entire website in just 30 seconds?
Okay. Why do you feel like this didn't work? Why do you feel like this didn't work well? Write in the chat. Cool, let me switch back. Okay, so he goes, what if I told you I created their entire website in just 30 seconds? I created this entire website in just 30 seconds. Zero text hook, just captions, visual. Started full screen, then split screen, and then he had him on the bottom and he had like a really terrible looking website on the top, right? That was the visual. So here's why this flopped. This entire thing was building context around look how crazy of a thing I could do in 30 seconds, but the visual was trash. So immediately it ruins the curiosity that had been built. The first one, he said, I'm going to show you how you can make videos from simple prompts in seconds. He didn't show the video. Now, as soon as he showed a video that was bad, you'd probably bounce. If the video was good, you would stay. So in a way, he was creating like a promise with the contrast, but then didn't deliver on it, which feels like a bait and switch. So that's a huge problem. And then the hook implies he's going to explain that he did create the website. But what isn't clear is that if he's going to explain how. After one sentence, you're still not sure. Is he going to do like a tutorial of the tool? Is he going to show you how he made the website? Is he going to show you something else? It's like not immediately clear. A better option for him would have been something like, people are building entire websites like this one in 30 seconds. And then the key is this one has to be actually good. If the tool doesn't work, you can't frame it that way. So that's an example of a bad hook. And I think it was bad because of the misalignment. The words were suggesting good, the visuals were showing bad, completely misaligned, viewer bounces. Cool. Melvin, what's the next one we should do?
Yeah, the next three in this order is storytelling, personal brand, podcast.
Okay. All right, let's go to storytelling. So let's start with the good one. Okay, this video got like 1 million views. Let's watch this.
Last month, I have been in one of the biggest slumps of my life. I procrastinated all of my work, woke up at 10 a.m., stayed up until like 3 a.m. playing.
Okay, he kind of gets into the video right away. Let's do the hook one more time.
Last month, I have been in one of the biggest slumps of my life. I procrastinated all of my work, woke up at 10 a.m., stayed up until like 3 a.m. playing mobile game. And here.
Okay, so before I switch back to this, why do you think this hook worked? Why did this work? Cool. So let's explain it. So he goes, for the past month, I've been in one of the biggest slumps of my life. Text hook was just captions. Visual hook, full A roll with the creator. Why did this work so well? The spoken hook and the visual hook felt super aligned. He said he was in a big slump, and then he was laying in a messy room, which indicated a slump. His eyes were down. He looked tired. Visually, it reinforced the concept, so you had alignment. The spoken hook and the premise was extremely relatable. This is one where, even though he spoke from an I, me versus you, your, it was largely relatable because he was showing the you, your. Like, if he could have, what would have made this slightly better is if he said, if you've been in a slump for the last 3 months, here's what you can do. But this one worked so well because he was so clear. I've been in a slump. Immediately you're like, okay, it's about slump. Is he going to tell me how to get out of the slump? That's what came in the next sentence. So the thing with storytelling videos is there's a little bit more grace to make it about you instead of the value, because if you just do storytelling videos about your life, most people are there for you as the character in some way. So you have a little bit more grace with the I, me versus you, your, but I think topic clarity and the alignment is critical. Like you have to have the visuals align. If he said, I've been in a slump, but he was riding a roller coaster, you'd be like, this makes no sense. You bounce, right? So him reinforcing visually that there was a slump, that was key. Now, I went through his channel and I found one that I don't think he did very well. This is from a little bit ago. Let's watch this one. And again, like I just want to reinforce, each bucket is a little different, right? Storytelling is one of those, I added it because people in SFA really wanted me to, but storytelling is one of those like a little bit of an outlier type category because you're mostly telling stories about your own life typically. So sometimes there's more of the me, I stuff in it. Let's just watch this one.
I've really learned the power of in the past year is thought habits. Now we've all heard of the power of like regular habits. Really learned the power of in the past year is thought habits.
So he said something I've really learned the power of in the last year is thought habits, right? That's what he said. What's our take on why we think that wasn't great? Cool. Let me share. Okay, so something I've learned the spoken hook. Something I've really learned the power of last year is thought habits. Text hook was 6:32 a.m. March 20th. Visual hook was creator B-roll like getting changed with his voiceover. Here's why I think this hook flopped. The visual text and spoken hooks were completely misaligned. The visual showed the creator getting dressed in his room. The text hook set a time and a date, pretty random. The spoken hook talked about something called thought habits. There was no connectivity between those, so it wasn't very compelling to stay, and it wasn't clear what was coming. The hook was framed in a me, I in this case, also, and introduced a confusing concept. I think what's more important for this one is not the me, my, it's the thought habits. What are thought habits? He made up that term. It's not clear what it is. So you're completely confused after one sentence, and the visuals were mixed. So at this point, I think the comprehension was low, and there's just a lot of people that just swiped right through it. It didn't hold you in that way. So I think a better way to hook this one would have been to say, all you need in order to be successful is to master your thought habits. This at least frames it you, your, and then I think you would have to use a visual that maps out what thought habits are, or him in a journal, like drawing something that relates to thought habits, right? If you wanted to make a video around this idea. So this is an example of like storytelling around a concept that most people don't know is tough. The alignment is critical in getting it to land. Cool. With these, so I'll keep going, but so far, can I get another rating out of 10? Are these examples helping in terms of it's reinforcing the concepts and like really showing with proof what makes sense and what doesn't? Okay, awesome. Cool. All right. Storytelling was number 1. What was number 2? Personal brand, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, personal brand. Let's go through these. So let's start with the bad one on this one. Okay, this is a guy who robbed the bank. Pretty funny guy, if you've ever seen this guy. So let's play this one.
Economy's about to tank, and here's everything you need to know. This isn't fear-mongering. Politicians inflated the housing market.
All right, and then some of these are pretty quick, but let's play it one more time.
Economy's about to tank, and here's everything you need to know. This isn't fear-mongering. Politicians inflated.
Okay, so why do we think this wasn't great? Biceps weren't big enough. That's my favorite answer. Okay, let's go back to the doc. So this is what he said. The economy is about to tank, and here's everything you need to know. Text hook was just captions on the screen. Visual hook. It was visuals of the creator pointing to money on the screen and then pointing back to him flexing is what the sequence was. So why did this not work? The link between saying the economy is tanking and him flexing makes zero sense. It makes no sense. And so what he was trying to do, if you really analyze it, is he was showing him making money on a screen and saying the economy's tanking, I'm making money. If you want to beat the economy, follow my thing, is what he was trying to say. But the flexing thing completely erodes any clarity on what you're going to get from this. And so immediately when you see it, you're like, what is this? And you go next. And it may seem in a vacuum like, 3 seconds, people will watch for longer. The average watch time on these types of videos is like 7 seconds. So people are really not giving a ton of time to you to kind of understand what's going on. So to me, that was the biggest reason why it was so confusing. I actually think the spoken hook was not bad. The economy is about to tank and here's everything you need to know. That in a vacuum is pretty good. But showing flexing makes no sense to that, right? So I think a better option would have been same spoken hook, but a different visual to reflect the economy tanking. Either if you wanted to go faceless, a movie clip from Wolf of Wall Street when the market's tanking and they're going crazy, or some B-roll clip of him that fits more with the message, maybe like him at the desk. It's red. He's like head in his hands, right? Reinforcing the emotion and the clarity that he's trying to build. So I saw somebody in the comments, right? Can you explain the contrast? The contrast here is the economy's tanking. He knows something about it that you don't. So that contrast is actually pretty good. I think this was an alignment problem on the pieces. So that's one. Let's do the good one from the same guy. This style he's been making recently has been crushing, where he's just like sitting here posturing, I guess, in one spot. But let me try to pause this. Here we go.
Make fake scenarios in your head before you go to sleep. It's a sign of mental illness. While if you lie awake at night replaying your day's mistakes, it's a reflection of your desire for personal growth and perfection.
That one more time.
Scenarios in your head before you go to sleep, it's a sign of mental illness. While if you lie awake at night replaying your day's mistakes, it's a reflection of your desire for personal growth and perfection.
Okay, so let's actually, before I go into this, what do you think he did better on this one than he did on the previous one? Like why is this one a 200x higher performer, or 80x? Cool. So this is what he said. If you make fake scenarios in your head before you go to sleep, it's a sign of mental illness. Captions, same as like it was just captions, no text, no title text. Visual hook, basically just straight of him, and then he switched to the movie clip. So and he had uplifting music, which I think was pretty key here. So why did this work? The context is immediately clear that the creator is going to share some insights around why creating fake scenarios before sleep is a problem. Right away, you're like, if you make fake scenarios before bed, couldn't be clearer. If that's you and you're like, oh, I do that, immediately you're locked in. If it's not you, you're off. But that's kind of the point. The curiosity loop here is built by contrasting people that do this versus people that don't. And then the next sentence he says, but if you do something else, it means this. So he actually built the contrast in the first 2 lines. This is just me analyzing the first 1 line. So to me, when you start looking at things in terms of variables, it becomes very clear. The winning hooks, they do the on-target context and the contrast with curiosity extremely well every time, and they have max alignment across all 4 components. Every good hook has that. So that's an example of personal brand. Now, a question people may have in the chat, like, if I'm going to make content for a personal brand, what do I make? That may be a question on your mind. That's a separate workshop. That's all about ideas, picking the right ideas and how do you develop those ideas. That's something separate. We cover that in SFA, but maybe in the future I'll do a workshop like this, but all on ideas. Right now, it's just about like, we have the idea given to us. He's deciding to talk about the fake scenarios thing. He's chosen this kind of style. How does he execute the hook? That's what we're talking about here. I just saw that in the chat, so that's why I wanted to say that. Okay, so that's personal brand. What was the third one?
Podcast.
Okay. So here's a couple of clips from Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO. Now, this guy's got like 100 people in the company, so his bad ones are still hundreds of thousands, but it's all relative in terms of order of magnitude. So first, I want to play the good one.
I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people, and I've never ever met someone who has the perspective on life that you have. You are truly unique.
Okay, let's play one more time.
I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people, and I've never ever met someone who has the perspective on life that you have. You are truly unique.
Okay, well, in the chat, why do you think this was pretty effective, other than the fact that it was Mr. Beast? So I'll switch back to this. So he said, I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've never met someone who has a perspective on life that you have. You're truly unique. No text hook, 2 angles of the creator. Why did this work? The context is immediately clear that something is going to be revealed about this person that is rare and unusual. Right away, you can be like, okay, he's going to reveal some secret. That's a classic like secret hook. And the contrast is embedded in the frame. I've interviewed hundreds of people. You are not like them. You versus them, creating that contrast. You're curious because of the you versus them. If he said, you have a strange perspective on life, that doesn't really deepen the curiosity as much as being like, I've interviewed hundreds of people and nobody thinks like you. Like that's he's expanding the contrast, right? So that's the good version. The bad version is this one, or the worst version, we'll say.
Seen patients cooking a meal in their sleep, driven in their sleep, committed crimes in their sleep.
So what is the story of Kenneth Parks?
All right, so let's watch this one more time.
Seen patients cooking a meal in their sleep, driven in their sleep, committed crimes in their sleep.
So what is the story of Kenneth Parks?
All right, why do we think this is a worse hook? I'll cut to the chase. The biggest reason is that the connection between the points is very unclear. So contextually, the guy's like, I've seen people cooking their sleep, driving their sleep, Kenneth Parks. He's like, who is Kenneth Parks? What does that have to do with anything? How is it connected? You're completely confused. Now, this type of video is probably a trailer or a teaser, but he should have cut it around one topic, I think the idea of making podcast clips where you're just taking the most interesting points curated by you and splicing them all together makes no sense, because the viewer can't get a single seed of clarity or context of what they're going to get out of the video. So to me, like, that's why this video did not do very well. I would have made the whole video around sleep time, which is what the expert was talking about. So before I keep going on to any other examples, maybe Melvin, do you want to look at the Q&A? Like, is there anything in the Q&A that's we should address right now?
The Q&A or the chat? Because there's nothing really in the chat.
Nothing in the Q&A. Okay, cool. Yeah, we can do the last couple here, and then also as a reminder, at the bottom of this doc, I took some of the questions from the Luma, like from when you signed up. Everybody had the chance to write a question. If you put a question in there that wasn't directly answered in the curriculum, I went ahead and answered some of those questions here. So when you get this doc, just scroll down and you'll be able to see the answers there. But yeah, is there anything in the chat, Melvin, that people are asking that's kind of like a broad question that we haven't really covered? Are we good?
So we do have a bunch in the Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A.
Yeah. So just sort them by upvotes.
All right, let me just flip to the Q&A then. Make sure we cover this. 1 second.
We probably don't have enough time to go through all of them, but we could probably mow down a couple.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is, so the other examples that I haven't gone through, I touched almost all the categories, but the ones I haven't gone through, you're going to get this doc. You can click and open them and then see the analysis. So I feel like we've covered a decent amount of them. There's probably 24. We've probably done like over half. So let me flip to the questions just to be conscious of everyone's time. I'm going to flip to the questions, answer some of those, and then we'll wrap up if everyone's good with that. So the first question is hooks for short form versus long form. Any differences? How should we think about long form hooks differently? So long form is a completely different animal. Long form, it's less about hooks, more about the intro. And when I think about long form YouTube, the intro is kind of the first 30 to 60 seconds, maybe 20 to 45 seconds ish. You still want to use the same psychology that we talked about here, which is clarity of topic and then building curiosity through contrast. It's still the same principles, but executing it via long form, there's a separate formula. So I'm actually working on building a full curriculum for YouTube long form videos that'll come out probably in the next month or so. And in there, I'm going to deep dive fully on all of that for long form. But the psychology principles are the same, but it's kind of apples and oranges in terms of the execution. For anyone that was wondering that. Next question, would love any tips for hooks on educational or tutorial content. So this is a huge rabbit hole that we probably don't have time to go down now. A couple things I will say is educational content works best when you aggravate the pain that the person hasn't solved and then immediately tease that you have some solution or framework to solve it that's different, and then getting right into the framework or solution. That's the best way to do educational, like tutorial content. So if you're like, let's say the tutorial's like how to build a blender at home. You could either be like, here's how to build a blender. That's one way to do it, and that might work. But that's good for context, but it requires someone being like, okay, I don't know how to do a blender. Do I care about that? Do I know? They're kind of like building it. So if you wanted to aggravate the pain a little bit more, in theory, this is like a silly example, but you'd be like, if you struggle to blend, or if you struggle to make smoothies at home, or like if you can't find the right blender to make smoothies at home, you should use this. Here's how you could build one from scratch. Here's how to do it, right? So there's kind of two ways to do tutorial stuff. It's directly right at it, full context, assuming implied contrast, or you try to build more of that contrast directly with the your restating the pain point. Those are the two ways to do it. In Sandcastles, in the next update, we're going to have a new script writer, a new hook writer that breaks out different types of content by structure. So like breakdowns, explainers, tutorials, case studies. We'll have different structures. The hook writer and script writer will write different stuff based on the structure. So I think that'll help you also with the tutorial stuff. Cool. Hopefully that was helpful. That was like a speed run. Next question, on the visual hook, how important is it that the creator is visible straight away? I don't think here's my take on this. If you're trying to use educational content to eventually sell something based on your expertise, products, services, information, you want to accrue as much trust as possible to you as the creator. You don't want to force yourself on screen in the detriment of comprehension. The most important thing is comprehension. What is the absolute best visual we could put on screen to get somebody clear on what we're talking about and get them curious? If you put yourself on screen and that supersedes something that would make comprehension go up, don't do that. I think if you're trying to accrue trust to yourself, you can always do like you in the corner, green screen, in a little circle. You can make the connective tissue clear. So I would try to do that as much as you can without impeding the comprehension. Cool. Next question. How important is it to have your face on camera during the hook? That was basically the same thing. Do it if it helps you, but don't do it if it hurts you. And the only way to know that is if you watch it back in silence and you're like, am I hooked or not? Is this clear or not? Is the comprehension up or not, right? So I would try both. And I would study your niche and see what's working in your niche. And if it's working, I would replicate that. Next question. Do your hook formats or frameworks differ based on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube? We got this question actually in SFA yesterday. I think a great video is a great video, and nobody can outrun their psychology no matter where they're consuming content. So if you make the hook following these principles, it should work everywhere. However, people are conditioned to see visual patterns differently on different places. So TikTok visual patterns are a little bit more like UGC, in the car, in the home. It's like less produced. So if you really want it to work for TikTok and you don't really care about the others, I would kind of skew the visuals to be a little bit closer towards what the meta is there. If you want it to work everywhere, I would just pick the absolute highest comprehension. If it's highly produced, low produced, it doesn't matter. I would pick whatever you can that kind of increases comprehension. So personally, I don't switch the hooks because I'm just trying to make the best thing I can up front and just let it rip. Cool. Next question. How do you write interesting hooks and rehooks for purely educational content? So we kind of talked about this already. It's all about re-aggravating the pain point and then teasing that you have the solution. It's critical. So if you're like, the example they said is how to write a good portfolio, you basically say like, if you want to write better portfolios, you should be doing this, not this. Or if you struggle to write portfolios, all you have to do is this. Those are like two ways to kind of like really straight up do it. it feels, and I probably should have said this earlier, it feels like you need all this razzle dazzle to get people hooked. You don't. Clarity is way better than being clever. If you're just straight up with the clarity and the visuals indicate that you have something coming that's worth it, or the text is like framework incoming ... and you say it straight up, that works. Like, people just can't resist when they have the problem that you're talking about. Cool. Let's do a couple more here. What is the best way to come up with super simple text hooks on screen for talking head videos? Honestly, the best way is to watch videos in your niche and see what you get hooked by, and then take those text hooks and try to patternize them, right? So if I say, let's say, for example, all my videos, I do the future of blank, the future of filmmaking, the future of content, the future of marketing. If you were watching my videos and you were trying to make videos in my space, you could say, okay, the future of X is one text hook pattern that seems to work. Okay, cool, you got that. Go through that 5 to 10 different options, and you can then pick and choose from there. The best is to just straight up say what it's about in a text hook in 3 words, but try to make it so that if you watched in silence, the text hook alone would get you interested, right? That's a good, kind of a good frame for that. Let me resort this. Okay, next question is, when do you use a hook geared towards a general audience versus those for your targeted niche? Always for your target avatar. General versus narrow is more a question of TAM than it is of focus. If you want the hook to resonate, you need to target it at who would find value from it. Broad versus narrow is more like, did you pick a TAM that's broad, a total addressable market that's broad? Are you doing fitness? Very broad. Or are you doing writing grants for fundraising? Very narrow. If you pick the narrow TAM, you need to target that TAM. You shouldn't intentionally make it less clear by trying to go broad, because that means your narrow slice will also be confused, right? So that's more of a content strategy avatar question, which is a little bit of a separate topic. Next one, would love to hear Kallaway's take on music in short form as well. The copyright-free stuff never tends to do as well in my niche. How do we know if we have alignment? You actually don't have to use copyright-free music for short form. There's no copyright issue except for on YouTube for monetization. But even then, musicians actually want you to use their audio because it helps trend it more and it's good for them. So what I'd recommend is, if you find a song you like, go on YouTube and search that song instrumental. Find the instrumental without the lyrics. And then if the melody is too crazy, use a low pass filter to kind of mute the clashing of the audio. And someone said, is that true for ads? I'm not sure for ads. You may not be able to use that for ads. I found a lot of good songs on Epidemic Sound. You just kind of have to, which is a royalty-free site. Artlist also works. You just kind of have to search for a while and then just save 4 or 5. You can find plenty good ones on Epidemic Sound. The next one is visuals. How do you think about copyright? Do you worry about using visuals? No, I don't, because here's the truth is, everything on the internet is one giant melting pot, one giant remix. And for short form, if you're actually ripping someone's video, like literally 59 seconds full of their stuff, in the comments, just be like, yo, shout out at person. That's the credit, the hat tip you need. But if you're like, the way I make my videos, I'm cutting up so much stuff and it's used for like half a second on the screen. It's kind of like, it's a free for all with short form. And I think that's just been the accepted meta. So I don't let that constrain me. I think you can be more original if you shoot your own stuff, but it obviously takes longer to shoot your own B-roll. So I wouldn't worry too much about that for short form. Long form, I think it does matter. I mean, the truth is, like, there's a format where people just, they take someone's video. This has happened to me a bunch. I make a video, it's a banger. They take it, they put it on the screen over like 2/3 of the screen, and they're at the top just looking down. They watch my entire video, word for word, sentence for sentence, full audio. Then at the very end, they're like, cool. And then that's it. That's their, and they get a ton of views on that. There's really nothing I can do, right? There is nothing more copyright ripping than that. And it's just like, yeah, it's kind of how it goes. You have to just assume that a lot of the credit will accumulate to the original poster, and like things revert to the mean typically. Cool. Next one is, how do you apply these hooks and engagement ideas for brands as opposed to for individual creators? Is there a difference? I think it's the exact same psychology. Ads versus organic might definitely varies, but like for organic with a brand, it's the same psychology. And I actually think a lot of where brand social strategy is going is having in-house faced creators, whether or not they're paid for the brand, the account is the brand name, or it's like a separate creator. All of brand social strategy is going that way, which means that the future of brand social is a collective, an umbrella collective of individuals that are making content for that brand. So all this would apply for that. To be specific though, for like branded content, I still think, let's imagine you're making a reel on Instagram or a TikTok and you don't want any audio, spoken audio. So you just have the visuals to work with. You still need to think through, what visuals am I going to show on the screen that creates immediate context as to what my product does? Am I showing it in a use case that differs from what they've used before, which creates the contrast and curiosity? Like, you're still thinking through these same fundamentals. It's just executed in a different way because you might not be speaking. You might not have a voiceover in the branded content. So that's my thinking on that. Is there a promo code for the Short Form Academy? The offer we have is the promo code. After we shut the link, we're retooling and it'll come out at a much higher price. So like this is the window right here if you want to join at this price. The next question, how much of these hook strategies can be applied to longer form? I already answered that one. Next question, written text on screen is the most important component of hook. Can you tell us more about why that is? So it's kind of like the visual package, which is like the text and the visuals on screen. I think the written is more important than the visuals because people read faster than they can like comprehend visually, right? So if you, I guess you could see this both ways. If you look at a stop sign, you might see the red before you see the word stop. But if you look at a video and there's big text, the first place you go is on the text and you're trying to figure out what it is. Maybe you're like getting some periphery of the visuals, but you're really comprehending the text quicker. So yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand. It's like the visual text thing is one bucket and then the spoken is the other bucket. Cool, let's keep going. Wow, there are a lot of questions. We'll keep going until there's no thumbs up on the questions. Okay, next one. How would you take someone who's just read their quiz results, now that I know so much about them, and hook them into the larger journey or idea I want to lead them? I'm not sure what quiz results. Lawrence, if you're still on, can you re-ask that in the Q&A another way? I'm not sure what you just read their quiz results. How would you take someone who's just read their quiz results, now that I know so much about them, and hook them into a larger journey? I'm assuming, I'll just say what I think you're saying. I think you're saying they filled out some quiz, you have more data on them, and so you're like, how do we re-hook them? That feels like an individual question in terms of like, you're trying to re-hook that one person versus the content's going to go out to many people. So I'm not sure if you're thinking about this in terms of like an archetype slice versus the one-to-many. I think the way to do it is like, the more data you get back in about what someone's problems are, the easier it is to make the hook directly about those problems, agitate those problems, and then get them interested. So that's how I would use kind of like the feedback that they give you. Next question, do you ever reuse previous winners? Even if a lot of people are copying them word for word, the video pops off, immediately 10 to 15 people make a video with the same hook. Yeah, I think, so I don't copy other people's stuff, but I've definitely looked at other people's stuff for inspiration and then remix off of what I think works. If you find something that works, milk it dry. Like if we have somebody in SFA that's a mobility coach, and he found this one visual hook format where he basically squats down and he's like, if you can't do this, you got a problem. He has made that video hundreds of times. If you can't do this and you're in your 20s, if you can't do this and you're in your 80s, if you can't do this with your left foot up, like he's made so many of them, and it works every time. It's a banger. So it's like, if you find something that works, it's kind of like if you were running paid ads, the whole reason to do paid ads is find a winner and then juice the winner. So if you're doing organic and you find a winner, juice the winner. And the way to juice it is make that same or a slight deviation over and over and over and over until it stops working. So I know the question is probably more like, what do you do if people copy you in the niche? The reality is most niches are much bigger than you realize. And so even a small niche, 50 million people, your video might have gotten like 400,000 views or 1 million views. And then a bunch of people rip it. Those people are not as big as you. So it's small. It's a drop in the bucket. Like just keep hammering it. People's brains on short form, they don't retain the memory of the exact format like over weeks and months. So you can keep hammering it and it's fine. Next one, how to make hook or videos where you teach and educate through your own stories and experiences. So this is something we talked about in SFA the other day. Essentially, my take is that you want to build the video around value. So and value being somebody has a pain and they want to solve that pain. That's education 101. So what I like to do is trigger the pain, re-aggravate the pain, tease that you have value, storytell via your experience of learning that solution, trying a false solution, and then realizing that something else worked, learning about some solution from someone, right? So it's like tease pain or aggravate pain, tease solution, explain solution journey through story. To me, that's like the rough flow. Okay, next one. How can I make video hooks as simple as possible for my clients? Most of them have never been in front of a camera. Yeah. I think it's as simple as on-target curiosity loop. My video froze here. I think it's as simple as on-target curiosity loop, and you just have to tell them it's really important that people are clear on what the video is going to be about as soon as possible, and that they're interested in wanting to hear what you have to say. And the way to get them interested is to tease that you know something that they don't. I think that in like 2 sentences, I think that's the easiest way to simplify it. And then the execution for a beginner, I think, is do extensive research in the niche, find what works, remix. Like if you're a huge mistake is thinking that you have to be original with every single thing, every single component, every single time. The people that are clinicians and tacticians at doing this, they have data teams that are going all out, finding the remix, like finding the outliers, remixing those outliers. You don't need, like you can remix without copying. And I think that's the easiest way for beginners. Okay, a couple more. For the spoken hook, depending on the niche and target audience, can a less intense tone of voice also work? You're sharing cutting edge text so it aligns. Yeah, 1000%. Here's the thing, like you can hear my normal voice, pretty monotone. Like I don't have crazy energy out of the box. So I've got to like bring myself up a little bit, which makes it a little bit more than monotone. But you can be way casual. Like you can be super casual. What I find though is if the pacing is too slow, you're not gonna hook them. So if you're casual, make sure you chop the silences between your sentences. Okay, let's do 3 more. Number 1 is, what is the single most common mindset block that you see in talented 18 to 20-year-old creators that sabotages their own success? And what's the first step you take as a mentor to help them overcome it? The biggest mindset block is trying to figure out the answer before you've tried to make solutions. Because I think what you realize is A, the bar is much lower than you think, and B, the answer is much different than what you assume. And so you kind of just have to like ready, fire, aim, fire. And over time, if you're curious enough and like driven, you will realize the path of most people is like this. It's upward, but it's zigzag. You will realize which direction is right as you go. So I think the mindset block is people, when they're 18 and 20, they look at other people and they're like, I'll never be like them. And so then they don't start. They don't actually make videos. Easiest way to get better is just to make and then iterate. So I think that's the biggest thing. If my reel is 60 seconds, is there a rough time frame that I should use to add rehooks or the but therefore framework? Typically, I like to do a rehook every 20 to 30 seconds. So one major one in a video with 60 seconds, maybe 2. But it's got to flow naturally. You can't force it in where it doesn't make sense. And then the last question we're gonna cover is, what's a rate that we should aim for the metric of view rate after 3 to 5 seconds? I'm assuming that's percentage completed. If you're over 70%, I think the video is going to go huge. I think at the 5-second mark, I think it's 72% at the 5-second mark is the right amount. Anything over 50 is pretty solid after 5 seconds. So you should shoot for that. But I think if you write your hooks in the way based on everything we've talked about, it'll make a huge difference. Okay, cool. All right, I know there's a million more questions. This is the type of thing we do in SFA. Like we just have a Q&A call where anyone can ask questions and we answer it. So if you have more questions, that's probably the best place.